Chapter 1. I woke up on October 30th, an evil prank playing in my mind. I got out of my bed and tied my hair up in a ponytail. I grabbed my supplies as quietly as I could and crossed the hall to my twin's room. I set everything down on the counter and walked over to where he was sleeping. "Thomas, wake up," I whispered, shaking him with a hand over his mouth. His eyes flew open, and he looked around fearfully before finding me, and he relaxed. I took my hand off his mouth. "What the hell, Taylor?" he said quietly. I said nothing. I just walked over to the table and grabbed what we needed again. I could sense an evil smirk playing on his face, too. He grabbed what we would need and went next door to our best friend's room. He was sleeping peacefully in the bed. I felt a strong urge to go and sit next to him, but I couldn't. I was too busy creating a prank, which consisted of feathers and hot pink paint on the fan, 2 pans of water, one freezing cold and the other burning hot, little toy cars under the rug, and a pair of cymbals. I set up a video camera in the corner of the room so we could watch it all later. I positioned myself at the side of the bed with the 2 pans of water, and Thomas was at the light switch, cymbals in hand. 1, 2, 3, I mouthed. Thomas clamped the cymbals together as I dumped the water on Xander. Thomas dropped the cymbals, flipped the fan on, and ran. I dropped the pans and jumped over the rug, running after him. We ran up a floor to Tessa's room and hid in the closet. We heard a large growl erupt and couldn't help but laugh. "Thomas! Taylor! You're so dead!" we heard Xander yell. We heard Tessa let out a small giggle, but she immediately stopped when Thomas hissed at her to be quiet, and his voice gave away a smile. The thought of Xander covered in pink paint and feathers was too overwhelming, and I, too, couldn't help but let out a small laugh. Thomas smacked my elbow, making me quiet. We heard Tessa's door slam open, and I immediately caught a whiff of the forest. I was attracted to the scent and wanted to climb out of the closet and find it. The closet door slammed open, and Thomas and I both burst out into hysterical laughter. Xander had pink paint dripping down from his hair and onto his shoulders, where it continued to fall. There were feathers here and there, too. I looked into Xander's eyes, which were pitch black and full of a playful anger, but the second they caught mine, they softened. "You're my mate," he whispered. Thomas and Tessa stopped laughing. "And you're mine," I whispered, standing up. I was lost in Xander's eyes. They were a hazelish blue color, and they stared right back into mine. I jumped when the sound of a door closing interrupted my thoughts. I recognized that Xander was still covered in pink paint and started laughing again. "What's so funny?" He playfully pouted, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You!" I gasped. I watched Xander's face as it turned into realization, and then a mischievous smirk appeared. I immediately stopped laughing. "Come here," he said, holding out his arms. "No way," I laughed. He started walking closer to me, and I tried to plan my escape, but he was getting closer, and I couldn't focus. I made it too obvious. Right as I stepped under him, his arms swooped down and grabbed me, pulling me into his chest. My back was against his muscles, and my knees were becoming weak. The urge to be closer to him was so strong that I completely forgot he was covered in paint. I quickly turned around and wiped the paint away from his lips with my hand and pressed my lips to his. He was surprised for a split second, and then they began to move against mine. I tangled my fingers in his hair, and he wrapped his arms tighter around me, pulling me impossibly closer. I pulled away when I needed air. I breathed. "Amazing," Xander finished. His voice was husky, and he was breathing deeply from the kiss we just shared, and I wanted to press my lips against his once more. "Happy birthday," I said quietly. "Thanks." He pressed his lips back to mine, and we kissed for a couple more minutes. I pulled away when I once again needed air. "Come on, we have to get ready." "We're going somewhere special for your birthday," I smiled, grabbing his arm and pulling him out of the room. He walked into Thomas's apartment, as it wasn't clean. Oops. Once he was gone, I ran into his room and silently laughed at the sight. I grabbed the video camera and ran into my room. I threw the video camera on my bed after stopping it and turning it off, and ran into the closet, grabbed some clothes, and quickly hopped into the bathroom, turning the shower on. When I stepped in, the water was cold against my skin. It didn't bother me, seeing as I had extra body heat, so I took the quickest shower in the history of the world and got dressed in a pair of white shorts and a cute red t-shirt. When I walked out of the bathroom, Xander was sitting on the couch, flipping through the channels. "Hey, beautiful," he said, turning the TV off and walking over to me. "Hi," I whispered, pressing my lips to his. I wrapped my arms around his neck, and he wrapped his arms around my mid-back. "Hey guys, let's go." My poor innocent eyes. Thomas screamed, walking in and immediately cringing at the sight of Xander and me. I took my lips off of Xander's, but he wouldn't unwrap his arms from around my waist. "Dude, I'm okay with you being with my sister, but if you hurt her, I will hurt you," Thomas laughed, uncovering his eyes. "Anyways, as I was saying, it's time to go." "Come on," I said, taking hold of Xander's wrist and pulling him out of the room and downstairs. We saw a couple of pack members along the way, but we really had to get going. Xander told one of the pack mates to tidy up his room and move my things into his room, and then we left. "Where are we going?" Xander complained when we were about halfway there. "Don't start that crap with me," Thomas laughed. "It's a surprise, so don't bother asking again." I couldn't help but smile. Xander just rolled his eyes. "Hey, we have a meeting to go to next weekend with the Moonstone Pack," Xander said. "And you get to come with us," he said, smiling at me. "Why do I have to go?" I complained. "Because you're the future Luna," Xander smirked. "You are seriously not playing that card with me." The "I'm the future Luna" ain't gonna work, I laughed. "Haha, very funny, but seriously, you have to come," Xander said, his face straightening out and looking at me with serious eyes. "Fine, I'll come," I smiled. Xander's face turned back into his everyday smiling, playful one. We finally arrived at the surprise, which was a giant amusement park. When we got out of the car, I jumped on Xander's back, and he carried me as if I weighed nothing, which, in his opinion, I probably did. We got our tickets and entered. "So, what ride do you want to ride first?" I asked, knowing his answer. He smirked. "The Storm." We ran across the park to the line, and didn't have to use our fast passes in line because it was so short. Xander and I hopped in the front seat. Seriously," Thomas laughed, shaking his head and jumping into the seat behind us. A small, petite girl with long blonde hair was sitting next to him. "So, what pack are you guys from?" she asked quietly after a couple of minutes. I jumped in surprise, took a quick whiff of the air, and relaxed. She was a werewolf, too. The girl let out a small giggle. "The Riverstone Pack." "I'm Taylor, and this is my mate, Xander, and my twin, Thomas," I introduced. "Sue, Alpha, and Luna, and Beta?" she questioned, looking at us. "Yep," Thomas laughed. "I'm Ollie, by the way," she smiled. We talked for a couple of minutes, and then the ride started up. I realized that I might have made a new friend. Ollie seemed like she wanted to be my friend for me, not to get into Xander's or Thomas's life. We spent the rest of the day hanging out with Ollie, learning more about her as she discovered more about us. By the end of the day, I had my first friend who was actually a girl. Chapter 2. I woke up the next morning, cuddled into a warm chest. I knew it was Xander from the tingles that ran down my skin whenever we touched. I let out a soft mm as I rolled over to face him. "Good morning," he said quietly, kissing my nose. I closed my eyes and smiled. I couldn't believe that Xander was actually my mate. I had been in love with him since I was a young teenager. I had tried to get over it, knowing he would meet his mate. I just never thought that I would be his mate. "You have a pretty smile," Xander said, breaking me out of my thoughts. My eyes fluttered open, but closed again as soon as Xander kissed me. Our lips molded softly together, our bodies lightly touching. I ran my hands through his hair, and his hands wrapped around my back, pulling me closer. I needed air, so I pulled apart and curled up into his side. "So, what do you want to do today?" Xander asked quietly. "I think we have a party to set up," I laughed, smiling and kissing his cheek. "I'm gonna take a shower." I grabbed some clothes and ran into the bathroom, locking the doors from the closet and the bedroom, and turned the shower on. When I hopped in the shower, The warm water hit my back, and as I began to clean myself, I let myself wander off in thought about Xander. He was perfect. I had been with him in a romantic way for a day, and I already knew that he was the best mate anyone could ever have. I finished cleaning myself and hopped out, wrapping a towel around my body. I looked in the mirror and tried to decide what to do with my hair this morning. I took the towel off and put my clothes on. I decided to put my hair in a side braid, leaving some hair to frame my face. I did the rest of my morning routine and walked into the bedroom. Xander was asleep on the bed, hugging the pillow. I quietly walked over to him, pressing my lips to his shoulder. I left a trail of kisses up his neck, and finally, they hit his mouth. Xander began to kiss me back immediately. He sat up on the bed, wrapping his arms around me. I crawled onto the bed and sat in his lap, wrapping my legs around his waist and gently grabbing his cheeks. The kiss slowly got more passionate. It was a demanding kiss, and I couldn't help but let out a slight sound of pleasure. Xander's eyes filled with desire, and his lips traveled down to my neck as I gasped for breath. I tangled my fingers in his hair and tilted my head to the side. "Mark me," I whispered, closing my eyes and enjoying the moment. I didn't have to open my eyes to know that Xander's eyes were pitch black. He let out a low, possessive growl, and I felt his canines sink into my neck. The pain lasted for a millisecond and was replaced with unexplainable pleasure. I let out a soft moan, and another growl escaped his lips. I couldn't take it anymore. I gently kissed his cheeks and then kissed him again. His arms pulled me impossibly closer, and he deepened the kiss. I felt his tongue against my lips and didn't feel like teasing him today. I opened my mouth and his tongue slipped in. His hands began to play with the hem of my shirt, slowly lifting it. We were getting too close and I knew it was time to stop. If I continued, things might go too far and I didn't want that. Yet, my wolf urged. I pushed my hands against Xander's chest and gently pushed him back slightly. Our foreheads were still pressed together, and I could hear his ragged breathing. "I love you, but I'm not ready," I whispered. "I know. Thank you for stopping me," he said. I stared at his lips, which were swollen and pink from the last few minutes. My hands were still holding his cheeks as we sat there just staring at each other. "God, I love you," Xander whispered, burying his head in my neck and kissing my mark. "I love you too, but we have business to do," I said, pressing my lips to his temple before removing myself from his lap. I listened closely and heard Thomas's heartbeat. I smirked at the thought. "Where's the firecrackers?" I asked wickedly. Xander smirked, knowing the look on my face meant trouble. He ran into the closet and came back with a small bin. He opened it, and my plan became even bigger. I grabbed the best ones and a lighter, quietly running across the hall with Xander. I was quick and quiet when sneaking into his room, which was easy with my petite frame. I quietly set a couple on the floor, sending Xander to get another lighter and 2 pans with lids. I smiled evilly. This was almost my routine every morning, pranking somebody. It usually wasn't as extreme as it was yesterday, though. Yesterday was a birthday. Xander came back, and I quietly set the pans down on the floor, placing the firecrackers in them. 1, 2, 3, I mouthed to Xander. We lit the ends, put the lids over them, and ran out of the room. "Let's go for a run," I heard Xander's voice in my head. I almost had a heart attack, but remembered we would have a special mate mind link because he marked me. I nodded, and we ran out of the house. We heard a loud series of bangs, and I laughed hysterically as I shifted. My wolf was a light gray color, and on the full moon, it almost sparkled under the light. Xander's big black wolf nuzzled its snout into my neck. "Damn you, Whitefield. Damn you." We heard Thomas roar, and that was our cue to take off running. I was running slightly faster than Xander, who was trailing behind me. An hour later, we decided it was safe to go home. I walked into the pack house holding Xander's hand. We went up to our apartment, where Thomas and Tessa were sitting at the island. "You guys are idiots," Thomas laughed. "Hey, you're the one who didn't hear us, even with your wolf hearing," I teased. I was asleep. Thomas shouted defensively. "Well, next time, don't be asleep," Xander shot back at him before bursting into laughter. "You 3 remind me of the 3 Stooges, only 3 times worse." Tessa said, shaking her head. The Three Stooges laughed at this. I'll take that as a compliment, I laughed. Tessa just rolled her eyes. Once we were able to stop laughing, I finally spoke up. I believe we have a party to set up. Chapter 3. I welcomed people into the pack house with Xander, complimenting them on their costumes. Xander and I had decided to go as Fred and Wilma Flintstone, and Thomas dressed up as Pebbles, no joke. After a long time of letting people in, we headed over to the dance floor, where I found Ollie. This party is awesome, Ollie yelled, dancing to the music. Thanks. I called back, trying to be heard over the music. Is it all right that I brought my brother and sister along? Of course. The more the merrier, I said happily. The party really did turn out great. We made sure there was no alcohol because the younger pack members were also at the party, having a good time, and we didn't want any drunk teens to do anything stupid in front of them. A pair of arms snuck around my waist, and sparks shot through my body. Hey, came a husky voice, and I knew who it belonged to even before he spoke. I leaned back into him and lined my arms up with his. Xander and I danced for a couple more minutes before I took his hand and led him outside. We walked to the gardens, and I gasped at what I saw. Tessa jumped apart from the man she was talking to, but she still remained in contact with him. Tessa, I asked. Taylor, this is my mate, Aiden, she said nervously, holding his hand. He had the same piercing blue eyes as Ollie, which made me wonder if this was her brother she was talking about. Nice to meet you, Aiden. I'm Taylor, the unofficial Luna, and this is my mate, Xander, the alpha. I laughed. I sent Tessa a look that said I approve. Nice to meet you, too, Taylor, Aiden said politely. He was handsome, but in my mind, nobody could beat Xander. Do you have a younger sister named Ollie by any chance? I asked. Yeah, actually I do. Do you know her? Aiden asked, a smile on his face as he snaked his arm around Tessa's waist. I smiled at the small gesture, and I could already tell they were going to be one of the cutest pairs of mates. Yeah, I was the one who invited her, I smiled. So you're 18? I verified. Tessa was a little over a year younger than us, so it wouldn't be a big age difference. Yes, I turned 18 6 months ago, he answered, nervousness rising in his voice. Don't worry, Taylor, we're just under 2 years apart, Tessa laughed. Just making sure, I smiled, winking at my sister. I'll see you two around, I said before walking off with Xander. We walked around the gardens for an hour or so, goofing off and just acting like a silly couple in love. We went back to the pack house, where the party was, and found Thomas and Ollie. We partied for the rest of the night and went to bed around 1 in the morning. Ollie and her older sister, Anna, were staying with our pack tonight, and we showed them one of the empty apartments. I already knew Aiden was going to be sleeping in Tessa's room. I walked into my apartment and took my costume off, which left me in black leggings and a white t-shirt. I crawled into the bed and curled up next to Xander. Baby? He asked quietly. Yeah, I whispered, turning around to face him. Butterflies were floating around my stomach from the skin contact, and the fact that he called me baby just added to it. I slowly began to trace little circles on his bare chest with my finger. Do you think that we'll ever have kids one day? He asked nervously. I giggled at the worry in his voice. Yeah, I think we will, I smiled, blushing lightly. Good. I love you, I whispered, turning so my back was against his chest. His arm immediately wrapped around me, pulling me closer. I love you too. Don't ever forget that, I heard him whisper in my ear before I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I heard the water running from the bathroom. I got out of bed and went into the kitchen, trying to find something to eat. Wanna just go out to eat? I heard Xander ask. He was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, dressed in dark jeans and a tight navy blue t-shirt. I walked over to him and wrapped my arms around his torso. Yeah, but I have to get ready first, I said. I looked up and unwrapped my arms, placing them on his cheeks. I pressed my lips to his for a couple of seconds before pulling back. It was a short and sweet kiss, not a passionate, heated one like the one we shared yesterday. I love you, I whispered, running away to the closet. I grabbed a purple sweater and white jeans and ran into the bathroom to take a shower. My thoughts once again went to Xander as the hot water hit my back. I thought about what he asked last night, and a smile appeared on my face. I did want kids with him. I wanted a big family, and hopefully he would too. Even though we were both from smaller families, I knew that I wanted my kids to have more siblings than I had. I quickly finished up in the shower and pulled my clothes on, putting my hair up in a messy bun and applying minimal makeup. Ready? I asked as I walked out, grabbing my phone and shoving it in my back pocket. I slipped my feet into some Converse, holding my hand out for Xander, who was sitting on the couch. Let's go, he said. Chapter 4. Where are we going? I asked sweetly. I don't know, Xander said innocently. I laughed at his attempts to cover up our location. Can we go to Le Peeps? I begged. Xander looked over at me and just laughed. That's where we were gonna go, he said, still laughing as he shook his head. Yes, I said, fist pumping the air. A couple of minutes later, we pulled into the parking lot of one of my favorite places to eat. Come on, I said excitedly, pulling Xander into the breakfast place. He began to laugh at my childlike enthusiasm. Table for two, he said with a smile to the elderly woman. Follow me, she smiled sweetly, leading us to an empty table next to the window. Can I get you anything to drink? I'll have hot chocolate, I said. Same, Xander said, already looking at the menu. What do you want to do after this? Xander asked me. Can we go to a movie? I asked. No chick flicks or anything like that, he warned, trying to keep a serious face. And failing. Xander, how long have you known me? I asked, closing my menu and staring up at him. Since you were born. And how many times have I seen a chick flick? I asked, looking at him with a teasing look. He began to shift around nervously in his seat. Like, twice, he said, looking around for an exit in case I decided to get upset. That's right. And anyways, I want to go see The Maze Runner, I smiled sweetly, pretending to act all innocent as I picked up my menu and pretended to look through my options even though I already knew what I wanted. Xander sighed in relief. Thank you for not getting mad, he said, smiling and looking back at his menu. I set mine down again and looked at him. Who said I wasn't going to? I said in an innocent voice, fluttering my eyes at him. Xander's eyes widened as he looked at the exit door. Relax, I'm joking, I said, shaking my head with a smile on my face. He sighed in relief again. But it's only because I love you. What can I get to eat for you two today? Asked a teenage girl. Her eyes were lingering on Xander, and she kept trying to push her chest up without us noticing, but I did see. She looked like your typical overconfident waitress, with a skirt that barely covered her and a shirt that could have been buttoned up more. Her hot pink bra was showing. I knew she was trying to get Xander's attention, but I knew that wouldn't work. I leaned back in my seat and yawned, enjoying the show. She glared at me and leaned down on the table, facing my mate. So, are you doing anything later? She asked in a seductive voice. Actually, I am, but it doesn't involve you, Xander smirked. The waitress stopped leaning on the table and pouted. But she's not even pretty, she complained, gesturing to me. She's the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. Now can you please take our order? Xander asked. Fine, she said, still looking at Xander in a way I didn't appreciate. What can I get you two to eat? I'll take 3 chocolate chip pancakes with a side of sausage, I ordered. What a fatty, I heard her mutter under her breath, but with our werewolf hearing, Xander and I both heard. Excuse me? I asked, pretending to be hurt. They weren't really hurt feelings, but why not pretend? What? She asked in a bored tone. You called me a fatty, I glared. Well duh, who orders 3 chocolate chip pancakes? She said, eyeing my back. I do. Now can we please get a different waitress? Talking to rude people wasn't on my list of things to do today, I growled, my eyes darkening. Her eyes widened at my tone, and she scurried off to the kitchen. Nicely done, Xander smirked. Let's go, I whispered before getting up and pulling him out of the restaurant. We drove to the movie theater and saw The Maze Runner, which was by far one of the best movies I've ever seen. What do you want to do now? I asked Xander as we were cuddling on the couch. Can't we just cuddle? He asked, nuzzling his nose in the crook of my neck. Yeah, I sighed. I lightly kissed his cheeks. He began to kiss me back immediately. It was one of those passionate and deep kisses. Our lips moved in perfect sync. Xander's tongue dashed out and hit my lips. I moaned from the feeling, and his tongue met with mine. I wrapped my legs around his waist and slowly brought my hands across his toned chest. His lips broke away from mine, and we both were gasping for breath, but that didn't stop him from kissing down my neck. I needed to stop this before it went too far. I wasn't ready to take the next step just yet. As much as I was enjoying the feeling, I lightly pushed him away. I gave him a look that said I wasn't ready yet. I'm coming in 3 seconds, and I better not meet the same sight as I did with Tessa and Aiden. Thomas yelled. I quickly got off the couch and straightened out my clothes right as the door barged open. Ollie was following Thomas. He made himself right at home on top of Xander, and Ollie sat down in the chair. Dude, get the hell off. Xander grunted, pushing Thomas off of himself. Thomas fell to the floor with a thud. Ow. Mama, I think I got a boo-boo, Thomas said, shooting his bottom lip out and looking at me, pointing to his knee where the rug burn was already healing. Oh, I think you'll be okay, I said, patting him on the back before sitting next to Xander, who pulled me into his side. Child neglect. Thomas screamed before running out of the room. He'd be back. Well, that was interesting, Ollie said, beginning to laugh. Xander and I couldn't help it, so we began to laugh with her. Hey, you don't even know the best part, Tessa smirked, coming in with Aiden. What is the best part then? Xander asked, still laughing his head off. I may have tripped him on the top step, and he tumbled down the stairs, Tessa smirked, laughing. Everyone began to laugh again as Thomas walked in, covered in paintballs. What the heck happened? I yelled, laughing my own ass off. Apparently somebody decided it would be funny to trip me down the stairs, where teenage boys with paintball guns were waiting, Thomas groaned, eyeing Tessa. Speaking of pranks, I yelped, standing up and dashing into the bedroom. I grabbed my video camera and the cord to connect the TV. I looked at Thomas, and he had this look of amazement on his face. I set up the equipment and pressed play. Thomas and I were in positions, and then all hell broke loose. We ran out, and Xander sat straight up from his bed, a look of fury on his face. Then the pink paint and feathers came. Everyone broke out into laughter except for Xander, who groaned. Did you seriously have to show this to everyone? Show, you're ruining the movie, I said quietly. He groaned again and buried his head in my neck, sniffing my scent. He yelled at us and then attempted to run out of the room. The cars made him slip and fall, but he got right back up and ran out of the room. Best movie ever, Ollie laughed, making everyone else laugh. Chapter 5. I sat up and let out a sharp scream as the cold water drenched me and the bed. I heard a loud growl, and within seconds, Xander was standing over me, panic and worry all over his face. When he saw my state, he burst out laughing. A second, third, fourth, and fifth laughter joined him. I looked away from Xander, and Thomas, Tessa, Ollie, and Aiden were standing there laughing their heads off. I glared at them all, giving every one of them a cold stare. You guys are evil, I growled, flopping back down on the bed, but sitting up quickly. The bed was wet and cold. I let out a low growl, standing up and stalking out of the room. I ran to Thomas's room and flopped down on the bed, making it all wet with my hair and sopping clothes. Seriously, Thomas grumbled. Payback's a tough one, I said with an evil smile, running back into my room. Ollie was watching TV on the couch, and Tessa and Aiden were already gone. I'm gonna take a quick shower, I said, walking into the bedroom. I pulled out a pair of dark wash skinny jeans and an old football jersey of Xander's with a white cami under it. I took a shower, got dressed, braided my hair to the side, and applied a light layer of makeup. I didn't put too much on, just enough to brighten my face. I walked out, and Ollie was still sitting on the couch. Come on, let's go get breakfast, I said, walking out of the small apartment. Our pack house was different from most. Everyone had their own little apartment, and at 16, you could have one if you wanted to. The cafeteria was already full of people. Ollie and I grabbed some breakfast and went to sit next to Aiden, Tessa, and Anna. Anna was a quiet girl, and we hadn't really talked much, but she seemed nice. The 3 siblings were staying with our pack for a couple of days. They didn't like their pack much, but I wouldn't either. The Alpha was cruel and heartless, but when we needed allies, we had them. I wish we could join your pack. Everyone's so much nicer, Anna said, looking around longingly at everything. You should join our pack. Then Aiden and Tessa can always be with each other and their families. And I can hang out with Ollie whenever I want to. I started to get really excited. Seriously, you would let us join your pack? Ollie squealed, forgetting about her waffles. Of course, I said, just as excited. Xander and Thomas can sit down with us. Can they join our pack? Sure. We can do the ceremony tonight, he smiled. Seriously, Ollie squealed again. I looked over at Anna, and she had a hidden smile on her face. We were all joking and laughing when Xander and Thomas both tensed up. I mind-linked Xander to let me in, and then I heard some of the patrols. There's a rogue that crossed over the northern border. She seems harmless, but please come just to make sure. I'm coming, I heard Xander. We'll be right back, I told the others at the table. I followed Xander and Thomas out of the cafeteria and through the pack house. We all shifted and ran to the border, where we found 3 patrols and a young teenage girl with light blonde hair. She looked around. She was no older than 17. Her eyes were full of fear as she looked at us coming towards her. Mate, she whispered when her eyes landed on Thomas. Thomas stopped immediately, looking at her. Xander and I stopped beside him. I gave him a little nudge forward as the girl looked up at Thomas, her eyes wide with fear. What's your name? He asked quietly, running his knuckles along her cheek. Mia. Mia Porter, she said in nothing more than a whisper. Even with my advanced hearing, I barely picked it up. I'm Thomas, Beta of the Riverstone Pack, and that's Taylor and Xander, the Alpha and Luna, Thomas introduced, his voice soft and caring. Please don't kill me, Mia begged. We're not gonna kill you. I will never let anyone hurt you, Thomas said quietly. But we do need to ask you some questions. Mia looked relieved that she would survive. Anything. Just don't take too long. I have to get back to my sister, she said. Why are you a rogue? Xander asked in a voice just as caring as Thomas. I left my pack because the Alpha was cruel and drunk half the time. He almost hurt me. Thomas growled possessively at this. Mia's eyes widened in fear at the sound. Thomas's face morphed into guilt. Mia took a deep breath and continued, still trembling a little. He almost hurt me last week, so I took my sister, packed a bag of necessities, and left. How old are you? Thomas asked. I turned 16 3 weeks ago, she said, looking at Thomas. How old is your sister? I asked. 5. I left her napping where we're staying, Mia said. What happened to your parents? I asked. They died in a rogue attack last year. We would have been prepared if the Alpha wasn't busy with his toys, Mia said, her voice turning into a sneer on the last couple of words. I'm sorry. Xander's parents and mine and Thomas's parents died 2 years ago in a rogue attack too. Now we were just being girls and about to have emotional breakdowns. Why don't you go and get your sister and your stuff and stay with us? You're going to have to join our pack eventually, and we're having a ceremony tonight so you can join our pack. Only if you want it tonight. I mean, we can wait, Thomas said, beginning to ramble. Xander and I looked at each other, silently laughing. Of course. I'd love to join your pack tonight. Do you want to come with me to get my sister? Mia asked Thomas. Sure, he said, and I could almost see his wolf getting excited at the thought of being alone with his mate. Make sure you don't trip and fall. We can't have more accidents. I called after them, directing it towards Thomas. Mia began laughing, although she seemed confused. Thomas grabbed her hand softly and looked back at me. If I do fall, my mate will actually care, you know. He yelled back. Mia, remember werewolves have super healing powers, so if he does scratch himself with a leaf, just let it be, I yelled, a laugh following it. All right, she laughed. I grabbed Xander's hand and leaned into him. He wrapped his arm protectively around me, and we started to walk back to the pack house. Don't forget you have to pack for this weekend, he reminded me, kissing my temple. I groaned at the thought. I didn't want to go to the meeting. Do I have to go? I asked one more time. Yes. You're the Luna, he smirked. Right, I said, rolling my eyes. Come on, we have to go set up a room for Mia and Trina, he said, shifting into his wolf and running off. I shifted too and ran off after him. When we arrived at the pack house, we shifted to an empty apartment with 2 bedrooms. It was empty right now, but we had some of the pack warriors help us bring some furniture up. Part of the basement just had extra furniture for these cases. We brought up a white bedroom set with a bed, 2 nightstands, a dresser, and a desk for Mia and put it in the bigger of the 2 rooms. I didn't decorate or anything. I was going to let Mia do that. For Trina's room, we got a cute twin-sized bed with a white headboard, a matching dresser, a pink toy box, a really cool dollhouse, and a small square table with 2 chairs for drawing and painting. We were going to let Mia pick out the rest of the furniture for her apartment, and by the time we finished putting everything in Trina's room, Thomas and Mia were back with Trina. Chapter 6. Thomas and Mia walked in, and Trina was sitting on Mia's hip, hiding her face in her neck. We set up a room for you. You can still pick out some furniture, though, I smiled. Hey Trina, should we go see your new room? Mia asked her younger sister. Trina looked up, and she was one of the cutest little kids I had ever seen. Her brown eyes looked around at everything before she nodded her head. I led the sisters up to their new room, and Mia looked around. She brought Trina into her room, and I followed. Trina, this is your new room, Mia said quietly, setting her down on the empty bed. I love it. Thanks so much for doing this, Mia said to me. No problem. Do you want to come down and find some furniture for the rest of your apartment? Mia nodded. Hey Trina, I said, bending down at the little girl's level. Should we go find some toys and some blankets for your new room? I asked. Trina looked up at me with her hazel eyes and smiled. Yes, please. Mia looked at me stunned. What's wrong? I asked. She's never spoken to anyone but me and our parents. She wouldn't even talk to Thomas on the way back. Mia smiled. What can I say? I have magical powers, I laughed. Come on, I said, grabbing Trina's hand and leading the way. We went down to the basement, and I let Trina go find some toys while Mia found some furniture. Their apartment was fully decorated and furnished by 6. I let Mia, Ollie, and Anna all borrow one of my dresses for the ceremony and helped them get ready. I put on a light turquoise dress that went down to my knees and had white, flowery lace around the waist and bottom of the dress. I straightened my hair and pulled the top layer back. The ceremony started at 7, where all the pack members were already seated. Xander, Thomas, Mia, Trina, Ollie, Aiden, Anna, and I all went up on the stage. Thank you all for joining us tonight, Xander started. And the crowd fell silent, watching their alpha intently, waiting for him to continue, Thomas said in a narrator's voice, making everyone burst out laughing. As you know, I turned 18 a couple of days ago and met my mate, your Luna. Everyone already knows Taylor, and everyone already respects her. I want you to continue to respect her, Xander said. And also, our beta met his mate today. She is one of the members joining our pack tonight. I want you all to treat her with respect and like she's been in this pack since she was born, along with everyone else joining our pack tonight. We have 5 new members joining our pack tonight. Mia and Trina Porter, and Ollie, Anna, and Aiden Waters, Xander introduced. He grabbed 2 knives from the table and called up Aiden. He handed one knife to Aiden, and they both sliced their right hands. They joined their palms together, and I felt Aiden join our pack. He went and sat down next to Tessa, who kissed his cheek. I silently awed at the little moment. Ollie went next. She sliced her hand open and pressed it to Xander's. I felt the connection again. Hey peeps. She chirped through the mind link. I laughed at her. Anna went after her, then Mia. Then it was Trina's turn. She stared widely at the knife, tears coming to her eyes. I went up to her and placed her on my hip. SHHHHH. I'll get you a new doll after this. I promise, I whispered in her ear. I tucked her head into my shoulder so she was looking away from her hand and motioned for Mia to come and use the knife. Xander came up to us, ready to press his hand to her little one. I held Trina tightly so she couldn't squirm, and Mia made a small cut on her sister's hand. Trina began to cry at the pain, and Xander quickly pressed his hand to hers. Trina was part of the pack. Hours later, I lay in bed next to Xander. "You did so well with Trina tonight," he whispered. I rolled over to face him. "Thanks," I smiled, kissing his nose. "You're going to be so great when we have kids," he smiled. "You'll make a good father one day," I smiled, pressing my lips to his. "I love you," I whispered, closing my eyes and tucking my head into his chest. "I love you too," he whispered, kissing my temple. I fell asleep in the arms of my mate, a soft smile on my face. The next morning, I didn't wake up to a bucket of ice-cold water, but yet another prank was already in my mind. "Xan," I whispered quietly, shaking him awake. His eyes fluttered open. "I need your help." "I really do love you," he smiled, kissing my cheek quickly before helping me. We blew up 2 air mattresses and put them next to the pool. Xander carried Thomas and Aiden down and put them on one mattress, and I was able to carry Tessa and Ollie down with no help at all. Hey, being the pack's best fighter has many perks. Once the 4 were on the air mattresses, I set up my video camera and hit play before we slid them into the pool and prepared the waterfall. Right when they were under it, I flipped the switch and freezing cold water poured down on them. I fell to the floor laughing, but quickly got pulled onto a soft and furry back. The wind was in my face as I wrapped my arms around my mate. Minutes later, I prepared myself and jumped into the air, shifting and starting to run in my own wolf form. We heard a thunderous growl from Thomas, and I started to laugh. "You guys are so dead." We heard Tessa yell, and I knew they had all shifted and began to run after us. Xander and I started to run faster, and we ran to a large meadow. We quickly shifted and climbed up a tree, hiding ourselves with leaves and branches. Their 4 wolves soon emerged into the clearing, and Xander and I both managed to stay perfectly still. A wolf, which I guessed was Elise, spotted us. I looked her in the eye, begging her not to tell the others. I silently thanked the light brown wolf as she turned away, pretending to look for us. Aiden spotted it a couple of minutes later and barked. I started to climb down, and a couple of feet off the ground, I shifted and bolted. I heard Xander behind me, and the other 4 were right behind us. We reached the pack house, and I cannonballed into the pool. Being in my wolf form, the cold water didn't feel so cold thanks to my fur. Xander followed my lead, and so did the other 4. We splashed around and played in the pool for hours and hours. Mia joined us eventually, with Trina sitting on the edge of the pool in her swimsuit with a life jacket, too scared to touch the water. Chapter 7. I threw my duffel bag in the back of the car and climbed into the passenger seat. Mia, Trina, and Thomas were sitting in the middle row while Xander and I sat in front. I decided to try one more time to get out of this. "Xan, do I have to go?" I asked innocently, shooting my bottom lip out. "After this morning, yes, you absolutely have to come with." "I don't trust you alone right now," he said, glaring at me. I may or may not have accidentally almost burnt the pack house down when I set off his whole bin of firecrackers. "Oops. I'm sorry," I whispered. I looked out the window, pretending to be sad, knowing this would work on him. Normally, he would see right through my acting and not be mad at me within a couple of minutes, and we'd all be best friends again. But ever since we found out we were mates, he has been completely and totally blind to it. "Taylor, I'm sorry." "I'm not mad at you, I promise," he said softly. I turned around with a smirk on my face. "Works every time," I sighed with a small smile on my face. I closed my eyes and leaned back, beginning to fall asleep. "Taylor, wake up," said someone, lightly shaking me. My eyes were immediately aware of my surroundings, but I relaxed when I realized it was only Xander. "We're here." We got out of the car, grabbed our stuff, and were welcomed by the alpha of this pack. "I'm River, you must be Xander, Thomas, Taylor, and..." He trailed off at Mia and Trina. "This is Mia and her younger sister Trina," Thomas said, wrapping an arm around her. River nodded. "Well, come on in. Your rooms are on the 2nd floor, rooms 12 and 13, River said, making room for us to go through. We walked in through the door, and were immediately greeted by the biggest flirt I had ever seen. "Xander." "I missed you, baby," she squealed, jumping up and wrapping herself around him. "I don't know who the hell you are, but get the hell off of me," he growled, shoving her off. My wolf was already pissed at this girl, but I just tried not to laugh. even though I hated her too. "Baby, you remember me, don't you?" she said, pouting in the most exaggerated way possible. "I'm Regina." "Sounds like vagina," Thomas muttered, and I burst out laughing. "What are you laughing at?" "You'll never have a chance with Xander. He turns 18 in a couple of days, and then we'll find out we're mates and live happily ever after. Without you," the girl sneered. "Huh, you're wrong about that. His birthday was a week ago. And he did find his mate," I laughed. I didn't even know why I was laughing, but this situation was so ridiculous it cracked me up. Thomas took Mia and Trina away, knowing I was about to go into my bats hit crazy mode, even though I was laughing now. "Let me have a go at her so we can have a happy ending." "I can already imagine us making out through the night," she said, grabbing his hand to pull him away. I growled lowly at her. My wolf and I were both pissed now. She did not just say that. "Back off, bitch," I snarled. Good thing Thomas took Mia and Trina away, because this was not going to end well. Or what? "He doesn't give two shits about his mate, right, baby?" she purred to him, but it sounded more like a dying goose. "I actually love my mate and would do anything for her. So back off before she decides to go crazy on you," Xander warned. The girl still didn't realize we were mates, and I couldn't help but chuckle, despite the anger bubbling up inside me. I'm much stronger than her. She's probably just a little weakling who doesn't know what a real punch is, Vagina sneered. Thomas was right. Her name does sound like vagina. Too bad for her, I like it. But the comment almost made me pounce on her. Nobody is allowed to test my strength like that. I've met his mate. She's the best fighter in the pack, I smirked, telling her the truth. Well, I can beat her in bed any day. Come on, baby, Vagina said, trying to pull Xander away once again. I'm not sleeping with you or doing anything else with you. You're an idiot if you thought I would, Xander laughed, taking a couple of steps back so she couldn't grab him again. Why not? Your mate will never know. Just a quickie, she begged. You're a jerk if you think he'd cheat on his mate, I warned. I was getting pissed now. Stay out of this, bitch. Why are you even here? She sneered, looking at me like a piece of trash. Xander's eyes darkened at what she called me. Actually, I should be asking you that question. Stop trying to sleep with my mate, I laughed before grabbing Xander's hand and pulling him away. He only followed me, a stupid grin on his face. Vagina was dumbstruck as we ran away, barely able to contain our laughter. When we reached our rooms, we collapsed to the floor, tears streaming from our eyes as we laughed so hard. Thomas and Mia joined us, and Trina was too absorbed in Dora to notice what was going on. That was hilarious, Thomas laughed. Dude, you should have seen her face. All her hopes and dreams were thrown down the drain. You had to be there to see it, Xander laughed. I quickly stopped laughing and looked at everyone seriously. Down to business. We need some pranks. I'm already going to mix hair dye so it's a pukey green and switch it out with her shampoo. It's classic, but it's a good prank. Any others? Put bugs in her bed. Another classic one, but lots of classic pranks will work on the slut, Thomas said. Good one, I pointed out. We could switch her conditioner with sour cream? Mia suggested. That's perfect. I said, laughing. We could also put a snake in her closet, Thomas suggested. You're on snake duty, was all I said. We could paintball her room and clothes, Xander suggested. I smiled evilly. Then we're all set, I said quietly. We managed to find our supplies among the pack members and set up the pranks. I sniffed the air for the horrible stench, and her most pungent scent was on the second floor. I smelled again and listened quietly and realized she was doing some very inappropriate things with someone on our floor. I ushered everyone into her room, minus Trina, who was sleeping. Mia ran into the bathroom and took care of the hair dye and sour cream. Thomas had a giant bin with a huge snake and another smaller bin full of bugs and dirt. Xander and I had paintball guns, and we mixed the ugliest colors of paint so it would look like someone puked all over her room and wardrobe. Xander and I started paintballing. I took care of all her clothes, and Xander took care of her room. 20 minutes later, our team of pranksters had completed the job. I set up my video camera, aka my signature move, and we hooked it up to the flat screen in our room. Thank God for Bluetooth. I hid the camera high in the ceiling so she wouldn't see it. I would go and grab it tonight. The sounds were barely soundproof, so we had to listen to Vagina scream and moan in the room next to us. She got her way with one of the alphas. We all put our headphones on and watched something on our laptops to help drown out the noise. All I have to say is damn werewolf hearing. An hour later, we finally heard all the commotion stop, and we quickly went over to the TV. The snake was on her bed, snaking on bugs. Vagina walked in and screamed. She ran out of the room, and we soon heard a knock on the door. We switched off the TV, and as I got up to answer the door, the other three grabbed what they had in case this happened. I opened the door and almost screamed. Vagina wasn't exactly in the camera shot, but now I can see that all she is wearing is a thing and a see-through white t-shirt. Why the hell are you dressed like a skank, Vagina? Oh right, you're one, I laughed. She growled at me. Who put a fucking snake in my room? She glowered. A snake? Who would do such a thing? I gasped, knowing my acting skills sucked. Actually, I was really good at acting. But this was all part of the plan. You would, you bitch. She screamed. After a couple more minutes of being called a bitch and being insulted, she left after Thomas got the snake out of her room. We went to bed laughing at her reaction to all the bugs and paintballs. I wondered what her response would be tomorrow. Chapter 8. This weekend was awesome. I yelled as we got out of the car. I know. I can't believe it was permanent hair dye. You should have seen her face when she realized it. Mia laughed, barely able to stand up straight. And when she turned her fan on because she was hot. She should have looked up and she wouldn't have looked like a rainbow, Thomas laughed. I think we showed her that we're not fun to mess with, Xander laughed. We all agreed as we unpacked our stuff. Hey, I'm gonna go lay Trina down for a nap, Mia said, leaving us three alone in my and Xander's apartment. We have to show Tessa and Aiden and Ollie and Anna the pranks. I screamed excitedly, running out of the room to find them. Taylor, Xander, Thomas, Aiden, come to the eastern border. We heard Ollie through the mind link. I didn't wait for the boys and shifted. I ran at lightning speed to the locations Ollie gave me, and within minutes, I was standing in front of Ollie, leaning over a body. Ollie, who is it? I whispered. I went to kneel next to her and started to cry myself. Anna was covered in blood, a wide cut stretching across her neck. Ollie, I'm so sorry, I whispered, hugging the girl whom I could consider my best friend. The three boys arrived seconds after that. Ollie? Aiden whispered. He went and kneeled down next to her, but froze when he saw his other sister's body. Oh my God. Anna. Anna. He roared, dropping to the forest floor and shaking her. It was no use. She was already dead, and by the looks of it, she had been dead for at least a couple of hours. I watched the two siblings as they mourned over their older sister. I barely knew her, but I couldn't help but feel sad while looking at the two siblings. Who do you think killed her? I whispered to Xander as he held me. I may not have known her that well, but with her sweet, shy personality, there's no way she deserved to die like this. I don't know. It could have just been a rogue attack, he suggested in a whisper. Just look around quietly. We slowly looked around, and I found a note pinned to the other side of the tree closest to Anna's body. That's for stealing my mate. You took some of my pack members. Now I'll take some of yours. Watch your backs. Alpha Quinton. Ollie, I asked cautiously. Yes, she answered in barely more than a whisper. Did Anna have a mate? Yes. It was the alpha of our old pack. He never rejected her, but he didn't want her. Every time she tried to reject him, he would beat her. The day we left to visit your pack, she rejected him quietly before we left, and he didn't realize it until after we were gone, she explained quietly, never taking her eyes off her sister. Here, I said, handing the note to the siblings. They read it, and Aiden's face morphed into anger. He took a couple of deep breaths, and I recognized his entire body posture that he was trying to keep his wolf at bay. Quinton won't stop until he gets revenge, Aiden told Xander, turning to look at him with a cold, hard stare in his eyes. Then we better start preparing, Xander said. He turned to me. I need you to train everyone for the fight, he said. I nodded, ready to kick some butt already. Ollie, Aiden, we're going to go back. come back whenever you're ready, I said quietly, walking back with Thomas and Xander. We didn't exchange any words as we walked silently back to the pack house. We all knew we had to start preparing as soon as possible, but we had to pay our respects to Anna first. We would all fight for her to make sure she didn't die for nothing. The next couple of days, we were preparing for Anna's funeral. The date was set for Saturday, November 13th. Ollie and Aiden were still sad and very quiet, but I could see Ollie slowly coming back together with the small smiles she would give every once in a while. Aiden spent a lot of alone time with Tessa, but I could tell he was getting better. The day of the funeral, I got up before Xander and took a quick shower. I put on the black dress I was wearing for the funeral, along with my black flats. I straightened my hair and added a little braid that wrapped around half my head. I walked over to the bed where Xander was still sleeping peacefully like a baby. I lightly pressed my lips to his, and he responded within seconds. I wasn't going to have a heavy makeout session with him, so I pulled away, causing a groan of annoyance to come out of his mouth. "You have to wake up. The funeral is today," I whispered in his ear, walking away to get some breakfast. I heard him shift out of bed and go into the bathroom. The shower turned on a couple of seconds later. I quickly made some toast for both of us and set it out at the table, where Xander joined me a minute later. We ate in silence, lost in our own thoughts. "How do you think Ollie and Aiden are going to handle it today?" Xander asked quietly, breaking the peaceful silence. I looked up at him. "I really don't know. They lost their older sister, and all they have left now is each other," I stated, speaking my thoughts. Xander nodded and continued to eat, looking up at me every once in a while with a slight smile on his face. We both finished our breakfast and got ready to go. Xander grabbed my hand, and we walked off slowly to the location of the funeral. The whole service took 2 hours tops with lots of tears involved. Ollie and Aiden were both devastated, and it seemed like it was finally hitting them that their older sister was dead. I let Ollie cry on my shoulder, knowing Aiden had Tessa. I felt so bad for them, not entirely understanding how they think, but I knew this is what I would want if I ever lost my sister. "Ollie, why don't you come sleep with me in my room?" "I'll send Xander to the couch," I said quietly. I looked up at Xander, who I knew had heard that I was kicking him out. Normally, he would put up a fight and just smirk about it, but given the circumstances, he didn't even say anything at all. "Thanks for being such a great friend," Ollie whispered while we started walking back to the pack house. "You need me right now," I said quietly, giving her a small smile. Chapter 9. "Xan, how does Thomas already know Mia is his mate?" I asked. We were both relaxing on the couch. He sat up, and I rested my head in his lap. He was playing with strands of my hair, which surprisingly didn't bother me as much as it did when most people played with my hair. He's older than Mia, and he's not 18 yet, so how do they feel the mate bond? "I don't know. We should talk to them about it," he suggested. "Yeah, I think we should, but not right now." I was enjoying just lying here with him, not worrying about anything. We had our first day of training this morning, and I think we made good progress. Our troops were already trained with pretty good combat skills, but there was room for improvement. "I love you," he whispered in my ear. My wolf was howling in joy at how close we were, and quite frankly, so was I. "I love you too," I whispered back. My eyes slowly started to close as Xander continued to play with my hair. I woke up the next morning wrapped tightly in a pair of arms. Xander was snoring softly, a small, natural smile on his lips. I heard our bedroom door open very quietly, so if I were asleep, I wouldn't have heard it. "Thomas the First, swear to God, if you set off the fire alarms, I will kick your ass," I warned, knowing exactly who it was without looking. "Damn it. Go back to sleep," he whined. "No, you big baby. Go back to your room with Mia and Trina," I chuckled. Xander slowly started to move, and his eyes fluttered open. "Morning," he whispered, pressing his lips to mine. Thomas screamed, running out of our room quickly. I heard something crash to the floor and knew it was the bin of firecrackers he had brought. "Works every time," Xander smirked, deepening the kiss. "Yup, I've known him 6 months longer than you have," I smirked. "True that," Xander sighed, pulling me impossibly closer to him. The contact was making my wolf jump around in circles as she howled in joy. I couldn't help but let out a small laugh. What's so funny? Xander asked, a goofy grin on his face, too. My wolf, I laughed again as she sat on her bottom and looked around with her tongue hanging out of her mouth. She's acting like me on Christmas. That's a funny thing to watch. I still have the video from last year when you opened your fuzzy socks. Xander laughed. You know I love fuzzy socks, and you've known that since we've all been in second grade, so don't make fun of me because of it 10 years later, I warned, glaring at him. His eyes flickered with fear. Huh. And Alpha is scared. Never saw that one coming. Come on, let's go talk to Thomas and Mia, I laughed, pulling him up off the bed. We ran across the hall into their apartment, and they were sitting in the living room watching a movie. We have to talk to you guys about something important, I started, making myself comfortable in the armchair. Xander sat down on the armrest beside me. Thomas, you're not quite 18 yet. Don't remind me, he groaned. Be serious for once, please, I begged. This must be really serious if you're begging me to be serious, Thomas said, straightening up and going into his beta trance. The second the pack members realized we were a worse version of the Three Stooges, they thought the pack was going to die at our hands. Given all the pranks we pulled and the fact that the three of us shared 1% of the responsibility and 99% of the trouble, it led them to believe that this pack would never last when we became the leaders. We proved them wrong. Yes, we are still very irresponsible, but when it comes to stuff like this, we pull out that 1% of responsibility and kick ass with our decisions. Like I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I started, staring at Thomas with a fake smile on my face. You're not 18 yet, and neither is Mia, so how do you guys know that you're mates? Do you know? Mia looked suspicious. I know why. We all looked at her, wanting her to continue. None of you have seen my wolf yet. That's because I don't really like to show it off. Most people would, but I don't. I'm the golden wolf. The three of us looked at her, taken aback. Every werewolf alive knew the legend of the golden wolf. Once the current one died, another person took its place, chosen by the moon goddess herself. The golden wolf has many powers that are used to protect the supernatural world. They can shift not only into their wolf form, but also into any other paranormal creature. They possess powers from all the different creatures in the supernatural world, and each one decides the fate of the werewolves, at least in their time. The reason we found out we were mates is because the golden wolf doesn't have to wait until somebody turns 18. When they meet their other half, they'll know right away, she explained. That explains a lot, was all I could say. Being in the presence of the golden wolf was almost as honorable as being in the presence of the moon goddess herself. What about running away from your other pack, though? I asked. The moon goddess told me that if I didn't find my mate soon, I wouldn't be able to save us from being exposed to the human world. She said to turn rogue and go find my mate. My old alpha abused me. We all heard a growl from Thomas. And I knew what she was telling me was right. So I packed up myself and snuck out with Trina at the dead of night, she explained. Why didn't you tell us right away when we found you? I asked. I wanted to wait until I knew 100% sure that I could trust you guys. Not to say you came off as suspicious or anything, but I've grown to know that looks can be deceiving, Mia said, looking nervous. Hey, don't be nervous or embarrassed. I completely understand why you did what you did, I smiled. But we need to start preparing. The moon goddess said the war is sooner than we expect it to be, and to expect the unexpected. Whatever that means. Chapter 10. Now that we knew Mia was the golden wolf, we had a significant advantage in what was coming, and from what the moon goddess told her, we needed to expect the unexpected. Xander called a pack meeting with the top 3 warriors, Thomas and Mia, and our third in command, Nathan, and his mate Natalie. We also invited Ollie and Aiden, who included Tessa, because they were from the pack that we would be in war with. Nathan was sitting next to me, looking worn out and tired. He was a man in his early 40s, and he had 7 kids, including a newborn. You know, if you ever need any help with Carly, I can help, I offered. I absolutely adored young children, no more words. She's a handful. Are you sure? Nathan asked. Nate, you've known me since I was born. If you ever need help with Carly or any of the other kids, ask me, I warned, but not in a scary way, but in a way that made him feel comfortable to ask. If we need help, we'll let you know. Jasmine helps out a lot during the day, but during the night, it's all Natalie and I, he said, looking very tired again. Jasmine was their daughter and Tessa's best friend, and Natalie was his mate. I offered him a smile before turning to everyone else. As you know, a new pack member was killed recently. Her old pack, the Blackwoods, has decided to declare war against our pack. We have the 2 siblings of the girl who died with us, who will help us win the battle, Xander explained. Everyone was staring up at him, listening intently so as not to miss a single detail. We also have the Golden Wolf on our side. Everyone gasped and started looking around. Who? One of the warriors shouted out. Thomas has recently found his mate, and she is the Golden Wolf, Xander said. Mia stood up and looked around at everyone. Everyone, this is Mia, your beta female. We discussed plans and tactics for hours, and I almost fell asleep, but then they started talking about fighting, and both my ears were listening intently. We need to find ways to surprise them. We can't just full-on charge and hit them head-on, I started. I was the leader when it came to fighting and training. For the next 2 hours, we discussed strategies for the war. I think we came up with quite a few good ideas, too. Xan, come on. We spent all day stressing over this. Let's go pull some pranks on Thomas, I begged, trying to get my mate out of his office chair. Taylor, this is serious. Mia said to expect the unexpected. I can't risk anyone getting hurt because we're not prepared, he said, looking up at me. I leaned down and pressed my lips to his, crawling into his lap. He started to kiss me back immediately. I pulled my mouth away from his, gasping for breath. We need to stop now if you don't want me to take you right now, Xander said softly. I'm ready, I whispered, my voice hushed. Xander's eyes seemed to darken even more. He stood up, lifting me as he rushed out of his office and into our apartment. He dropped me straight on the bed and pressed his lips to mine with passion. I rolled over the next morning, groaning. My body was sore, and I wanted more sleep. Good morning, Xander whispered in my ear. It made me shiver in delight. Good morning, I said quietly, closing my eyes and cuddling back into his chest. How are you feeling? He asked. Sore, I laughed lightly. I'm sorry. But it will get better with time, he whispered. We should probably get dressed before Thomas comes in. I laughed but agreed. I threw on Xander's t-shirt from yesterday and a pair of panties, and Xander threw on a pair of boxers and a white t-shirt. We crawled back into bed, smiling at each other with goofy smiles on our faces. I snuggled further into him, enjoying the extra warmth he gave off. I'm glad Xander made us get dressed, because within the next couple of minutes, Thomas walked in quietly. Xander and I pretended to be asleep, but I secretly watched, closing my eyes whenever he looked my way. He had grabbed a stool and was putting buckets of something on the bathroom door. When he finished, he took a deep breath, feeling a sense of accomplishment, and froze, looking towards the bed. I kept my eyes squinted open and watched as Thomas fell back onto the stool and crashed into the door, dirt and water raining on top of him. Tessa, Aiden, Ollie, Thomas screamed, getting up, staring at us in shock. Xander and I woke up and glared at Thomas. Who spilled on you? I laughed, yawning. The door, he said nervously, getting up and brushing himself off, which proved to be no help at all. Tessa and Aiden ran into the room, looked at Thomas, and laughed. What the hell happened to you? Aiden laughed. Ollie ran in, glaring at Thomas. Why the hell did you wake? What the hell happened to you? Ollie burst out laughing, tears already streaming down her face. Just smell, Thomas grumbled, but Xander and I both knew he wasn't really mad. The other 3 rolled their eyes and sniffed. You guys fully mated? Ollie asked. I buried my head in my mate's chest and groaned, my cheeks flushing to a bright red. Yes, Xander replied, laughing at my embarrassment. Don't make a big deal out of it though, I said, my voice slightly muffled. Fine, Thomas whined. He ran out of the room, and seconds later, we heard Xander and Taylor sitting in a tree. KSNG. And so on. Xander laughed at Thomas's childish actions. Everyone out, Xander laughed, sitting up and getting out of bed. Ollie grumbled a congratulations, and she'll see us in a few hours, following Tessa and Aiden out of the room. We still have to think about the war, he said once everyone was out. I know, I sighed, snuggling tightly into him. He was so warm, and I knew once we got up, I would be cold without his arms around me. I looked up at Xander's face, and he looked down at mine. We just stared into each other's eyes, not moving or saying anything. It was that moment when the two characters realized how much they loved each other, but I had already fallen in love with him. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, Xander whispered back, a genuine smile playing on his face. I was one of the only people who had ever seen this smile. He was either full out laughing or he had that smirk on his face all the time. I wrapped my arms around his waist and sighed, burying my head in his chest, breathing in his smell. I closed my eyes and shivered a little bit when Xander started tracing patterns on my back. We still have that war, you know, he sighed, looking down and giving me a peck on the lips. I groaned at the thought before rolling out of bed and running into the bathroom. I took a quick shower and brushed my teeth before walking out in only a towel. Xander had fallen asleep again, and I couldn't help but notice how cute he looked. I quietly made my way to the closet and shut the door without it making a sound. I picked out a pair of dark wash skinny jeans and a light sky blue sweater. I put on some socks and white Converse, walking back out to the bedroom. My mate was still sleeping peacefully, a frown on his face. I quickly put my hair in a sock bun without using a sock and went back out to the bedroom. I grabbed my phone and silenced the ringer before snapping a couple of pictures of my adorable mate. Then I quietly ducked under the bed and found what I was looking for. 3, 2, 1. I blew as hard as I could into the bullhorn, right next to Xander's ear. I probably gave the whole pack a heart attack. Xander yelled, smacking his head on the metal above him and groaning in pain as he fell back into the bed, holding his forehead. Oops, I said sweetly before running out quickly and running into the woods, shifting into my wolf. Like many times before, I heard a thunderous growl and knew Xander was after me. This is exactly why the pack thought we were doomed when we took over. We can't even focus on threats coming our way without pulling pranks. Chapter 11. Xander wasn't that mad when he found me in the meadow. I was lying in my wolf form at the edge of the water, thinking about life. I stared at my reflection, the sun making my fur sparkle. Xander came and lay down next to me, nuzzling his snout into me. I purred softly, nuzzling him back. I love you, Xander's voice came through the mind link. I giggled at his cheesiness and got up, running off into the woods. I knew Xander and I shouldn't be having fun, but I couldn't help it. My nature was to have fun and do anything to make people laugh, and it was hard not to do that at this time. Hey, you didn't say it back, Xander said playfully. He ran off after me and let out a low, playful growl. I pushed myself to go faster and ran to the pack house, shifting and running inside towards Xander's office. I hid in one of the cabinets and heard him enter the office. I held my breath and listened carefully. Taylor, he said in a voice higher than his normal one. Xander, I said in an even higher-pitched voice. Taylor, he said, going in the highest-pitched voice he could do. Xander, I screamed, beating him. Alpha, Luna, Quinton's at the eastern border. One of the warriors on guard duty said quickly through the mind link. I quickly crawled out of the cabinet, and Xander and I rushed off to the location. Alpha Quinton was a good-looking guy with his tan skin and dirty blonde hair, but the kind of alpha he was ruined it all. Anyways, he didn't even compare to Xander. I grabbed my mate's hand and leaned into his side. The gesture wasn't out of fear, but there was an uncomfortable tension in the air, and the closer I was to him, the easier it felt to be here. Alpha Quinton, Xander said with no emotion at all, his eyes in a cold, hard stare. Alpha Xander. I need to speak with you. You see, you took 3 of my pack members, one of them being my mate. Now, I will return the favor, Quinton said in a threatening voice. You killed your mate when she traded packs, I sneered, looking at the disgusting excuse of an alpha. How he ever became alpha, I will never know, but he couldn't stay in his position. Because she rejected me and I never told her she could reject me, he said, his anger growing as his eyes darkened. She wasn't a puppet. She was a human being who was very capable of making her own decisions whether you were okay with them or not. I argued. Shut up, he growled. Now, Xander, I will take your precious little mate along with 2 or 3 of your other pack members. Mark my words, he smirked, emitting a low growl as he eyed me up and down. Xander growled as his eyes turned a dark shade of black. I was shoved behind him a bit roughly, but I didn't care at the moment. I didn't want Quentin's eyes on me. You will never get her, he growled. We'll see about that. Quentin smirked before shifting into his wolf and running off. Xan, we have to do something about him being alpha. He can't stay in his position if he's this unstable, I said. Xander nodded at me, and we both ran off in the opposite direction, wanting to get home quickly. We told Thomas, Mia, Aiden, Tessa, and Ollie what Quentin said. Everyone agreed that something would have to be done about his leadership. The next morning, I was up at 6 and didn't bother to take a shower, knowing I was going to get hot and sweaty with the amount of training I was planning on doing today. I ate a quick protein bar and walked into the woods, reaching our training area where I waited for the warriors, teens, and young adults who wished to be trained. It was a spacious clearing that allowed people to have room to do what they needed to do without harming someone unless in combat. People started trickling in soon, sleep still evident in their eyes. Xander and Thomas came to my side, as they were my assistants and also the alpha and beta. We spent all morning training, and I was proud of all the sweat dripping from everyone. It meant we were actually getting some work done, and that was all we could hope for. All right, you're all dismissed, I said, only one drop of sweat rolling down my forehead. Ollie came up to me, looking about ready to pass out. You're a good trainer, she managed to gasp. I let out a small chuckle. Go get some water and then rest. You worked hard, I encouraged. Ollie nodded and trudged off after everyone else. I'm gonna go find Trina. Thanks for training us, Mia said, with no sign of struggling for breath present. She worked hard, but being the golden wolf, she had a lot more energy and stamina than most wolves. See you later, I said as she turned around and walked off. I'm gonna go too, Thomas said, running after his mate. Thomas, we heard her squeal in the distance, followed by a deep laugh. I'm gonna go take a shower, I laughed, beginning to walk towards the pack house. Can I join? Xander asked playfully, grabbing my hand in his. No. But Taylor. I shot a glare at him, and he immediately backed off. I faced forward and smirked. I quickly took a shower, and then Xander went in, and I started to make dinner. We all need to go out and have some fun, Thomas said, inviting himself in and plopping down on the couch. I smirked at Thomas as I pulled the pizza out of the oven. Let's do it. Chapter 12. Oh my God, I laughed as we stepped into the party. Thomas held Mia close to him as they parted from the rest of us. Ollie went off to get a drink, and Tessa and Aiden went out towards the back, which left me and Xander. Who's staying alcohol-free? I asked, turning to face him. I will, you had to do it last time, he smirked. But that was totally not true. He was the sober one last time. He just liked seeing me having fun. Alrighty, I laughed, heading towards the kitchen with him following me. I helped myself to a drink and went out back with Xander. We had fun at the party until around 2, and that's when Xander gathered us all up and left. Ollie was a little tipsy, claiming that unicorns were her best friend and Josh Hutcherson was her true love. I had a couple more drinks and was a little buzzed, but not enough that I had no idea what was going on. I fell asleep on the way home, along with everyone else except for Xander. Taylor, we're home, someone said, shaking me awake. I let out a groan and curled up even tighter, but arms quickly wrapped around me, and a couple of seconds later, I was gently placed on a bed. Arms wrapped around me, and I fell into a peaceful sleep. I woke up the next morning with the tiniest of headaches. Here, Xander said, handing me a bottle of water and 2 aspirin. Thanks, I groaned, swallowing them and then drinking half the water bottle. I began to feel a little better in the passing minutes. Just be glad you're not as tipsy as Ollie, Xander laughed. She did get pretty drunk last night, didn't she? I laughed. My headache had subsided now, and I was feeling loads better. I wish unicorns were my best friend. But I'm your best friend, Xander pouted, shooting out his bottom lip. I giggled at his childish behavior, but pressed my lips to his. Xander kissed me back softly. "We need to stop," Xander said, pulling his lips away from mine. I nodded in agreement. "So, what should we do today?" I asked, walking into the living room and plopping down on the couch. Xander came and sat next to me, pulling me into his side. "I don't know," he sighed. "We should go on a picnic," I proposed. "Just us two. Are you asking me out on a date, Miss Greenwood?" He asked in a very formal voice. "Well, someone has to," I replied in the most laid-back tone, and then pressed my lips to his lightly. He wrapped his arms around me, but I pulled away. Later, I whispered in his ear before getting up and running away. I went into the closet and picked out black leggings and a cream sweater, along with a pair of knee-high brown boots. I didn't bother showering as I had done so yesterday. I put my hair up into a messy ponytail and put on a small amount of makeup. I did the rest of my routine in the bathroom and then walked out. Xander had changed into khaki shorts and an Under Armour t-shirt. "Hi," I said, walking into the kitchen. "Hi." I began to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for us, threw in some cans of lemonade, a box of chocolate chip cookies, and strawberries. I folded a blanket and put it in a basket, along with our food. "Let's go," I said excitedly, grabbing the basket and his hand, and pulling him out of our room. We walked in silence, holding hands, to the clearing, where we laid out the blanket and I set out our food. "Do you think you'll want to have kids one day?" Xander asked out of the blue. I looked at him, a little startled, but nodded. "Me too," he agreed, pulling me between his legs as he took a bite out of his fourth sandwich. "Why?" I asked, licking the jelly off my fingers. "I don't know, I was just wondering," he laughed. "I hope you know that we're gonna have a lot of kids," he said thoughtfully. "And I wouldn't have it any other way," I smiled, pressing my lips to his. It got intimate very quickly, and like always, I was the one in control and stopped before things got too serious. "We need to finish this," Xander said in a low voice, and when I looked in his eyes, I knew he was right. They were dark with desire, and without even grabbing our stuff, he picked me up bridal style, and we ran to the pack house and jumped into our window. "Good morning, beautiful," came a soft voice in my ear. Lips were planted softly to mine, but I responded with just as much intensity. I softly grabbed Xander's cheeks in my hands and slowly brought them down his chest as the kiss got more demanding. His fingers traced the hemline of his shirt that I was wearing, slowly lifting it up. "Just take it off already," I whispered into the kiss. An hour later, or so I thought, I rolled off my mate, both of us trying to catch our breath. "We need to train today," I groaned, really not wanting to leave the bed at all today. I wanted to continue spending time with Xander, enjoying each other's company. "Come on, I promise we can do this tonight." "I have work to catch up on after training," Xander whispered in my ear. "Promise," I whispered, planting soft kisses up his neck and along his jaw. A soft moan escaped his mouth, and I couldn't help but smile. "I promise." "But one more kiss won't hurt," he said, pushing his lips onto mine. I kissed him back, but pulled away after a couple of seconds. "Yes, it will," I laughed, finally forcing myself out of bed. I probably should take a shower, but it would be for nothing later. I threw on a black sports bra and Xander's old football jersey, along with a pair of black capri leggings. I put my hair into a tight ponytail and went out to the room, and Xander wasn't there. I made myself some peanut butter toast and filled up a huge water bottle with freezing water. I reached the training grounds and was happy to see everyone already there. "I've assumed you've all stretched?" I asked as I set my water bottle down. I saw nods and many people said, "Yeah, great. We're gonna start off by running 10 miles around the edges." "Go," I shouted. I began to do it with ease. 10 miles was easy for them, but this was only the beginning. After everyone had run 10 miles, we spent endless minutes doing planks and hundreds of sit-ups and push-ups. I taught them how to throw a good punch and how to attack their attacker with the element of surprise. We ended training with 15 miles, and then everyone was free to go. "Goodness, I thought you were my friend," Ollie laughed, walking towards the pack house with me. We reached it quickly, but I immediately took the smile off my face when I saw Xander's face. "Xan, what's wrong?" I asked. Chapter 13. We had another attack, he said quietly so no one around us would hear. My eyes widened. 2 of the teenage girls were found dead right after training near the border, and 1 girl was taken, he said. I've already sent out 3 search parties in the direction of Quentin's pack, but you, Thomas, and I are going alone, Xander explained. Who were the 2 girls who were killed? I asked, my voice quivering. Ava and Ozza Newton. And who was taken? I asked, fearing the answer. Xander sucked in a deep breath. Mia. My eyes grew wide, and I knew my wolf was coming out. Where's Thomas? I growled lowly. He doesn't know yet. We have to chain him up before we tell him, or he won't act rationally. We need to come up with a plan to save her before we do anything else, Xander explained, and I nodded in agreement. Guys, have you seen Mia? Thomas asked with a broad smile on his face, running up to us. Thomas, something happened to her, I said softly, and watched as his face morphed into confusion and fear. Tell me what happened to my mate, he growled after realizing I wasn't going to say anything. Not here, come on, I said, grabbing his hand and lightly pulling him with me. Xander started walking with us, down to the cellars, where we would be able to chain Thomas down. As much as I didn't want to do it, I knew that we had to, or Thomas would run to go find Mia right away. Why are you taking me down here? Thomas growled, the look in his eyes deadly. We're chaining you up, then we'll tell you what happened, Xander said, grabbing one of the chains and cuffing it around his wrist. He finished cuffing my brother up before coming back to stand next to me. Tears welled in my eyes at how hopeless my brother looked right now. Now tell me what the hell happened to my mate, he growled. Quentin took her. The reaction I had suspected actually occurred. He growled, his eyes darker than the night, and the chains threatened to break off the wall under the force he was using to pull against them. As soon as you're calm, we can go and find her scent, then go back and form a plan, Xander said, and Thomas immediately stopped pulling at the chains. Let me go so we can find her, he whispered. His voice broke, and I almost burst into tears at the sound. Xander cautiously unlocked the cuffs around his wrists and ankles, and we all hurried upstairs and outside, stripping off our clothes and tying them around our waists before shifting into our wolves. This way, Thomas yelled through the mind link. Xander and I followed him, as he could smell Mia's scent the strongest. We followed her scent to the border, where it flat out disappeared. Let's go back and form a plan now that we know the direction she's in, I said, and both the men agreed. We ran back to the pack house and shifted, putting our clothes back on. Ollie ran out with Trina on her hip, a worried look in her eyes. Did you find anything? She asked. We went looking for her scent. Thomas caught it, but it disappeared at the border, I explained. I took Trina from her and started rocking her back and forth. Taylor? She asked softly, in a voice so quiet I barely heard it. Yes, I said in her ear. Where's my sister? She asked. I didn't want to break the news to this little girl that her sister had been kidnapped, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Some bad guys took her away, but we're gonna get her back, I said quietly, fighting back tears at the sight of this little girl. Oh, Trina said quietly, a single tear leaving her eyes before she buried her face in my neck. We need to get her back. And soon, I said. Everyone nodded in agreement. Hey, we just heard what happened, Aiden said as he and Tessa appeared around the corner. We discussed tactics all day long, with Trina sitting quietly in my lap the whole time. That night, Trina slept curled up right next to me the whole time, and I kept an arm securely around her, not risking losing her too. Babe, wake up, Xander said softly in my ear. What? I asked groggily, moving to sit up, accidentally waking Trina in the process. Come here, I said softly, pulling her into my lap. She buried her head in my neck as I wrapped my arms around her. We're gonna go out to Quentin's pack on Friday. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and we're going to celebrate with the pack, and then we'll go out early Friday morning, he said quietly. I nodded. Xan, I'm scared for Mia, I said quietly, looking at a sleeping Trina. We all are. We have no idea what she's going through, but she's strong. She won't go down without a fight. I know it, Xander said. And we will get her back, he finished with determination. I love you, I said with a smile. I love you too, he said, pressing his lips to mine for a brief second. So, what do I need to do for Thanksgiving? I asked. Everyone wants you to make your mom's apple pie recipe, Xander laughed. Do, it's delicious, I laughed. Come on, let's be productive today, I said, rolling my eyes at our behavior in a playful manner. Xander groaned, but got off the bed and went into the bathroom to take a shower. I laid Trina down on the bed, then went into the closet to change into a simple white v-neck and dark wash skinny jeans. Xander walked in as I was pulling my jeans on, and his eyes darkened and filled with desire. He was wrapped only in a towel, with water droplets dripping from his hair. I quickly pulled on my jeans as he stalked over to me and kissed me. I kissed him back softly, pulling away. Later, I whispered and bounced out of the closet, hearing a low growl. I chuckled and went into my scarf drawer, pulling out a sea green, black, and white tribal patterned infinity scarf and putting it on. Taylor, said a small voice from the bed. I hurried over to Trina and scooped her up. Let's go get you ready, okay? I said happily, bringing her to Thomas's apartment. I went into her room, passing his bedroom door, feeling nothing but sorrow. I put Trina down on the bed and went into her closet, pulling out some sea green leggings and a t-shirt with a sparkly matching bow on the front. Come on, let's go wake up Thomas, I laughed, walking into his room. It was a disaster. The alarm clock was shattered in the doorway, one of the closet doors was lying on the floor in splinters, and one of the nightstands was thrown through a wall with a huge hole in it. Thomas was nowhere to be found. I quickly scooped Trina up and ran back to my room, where Xander was making breakfast in the kitchen. We can't rest today, Xan. Thomas is gone, I said hurriedly. What do you mean? He asked, unplugging the griddle and following me out. His room is trashed and he's nowhere to be found, I said, and I began to cry. We ran into his apartment, and I led him to Thomas's open bedroom door. I started full-out bawling, which only made Trina cry, too, but I couldn't stop the flood of tears, no matter how hard I tried. Come on, Xander said, running out of the room. Wait, I have to find someone to take care of Trina. I'm not taking her with us. You go find Ollie, Aiden, and Tessa, and I'll go find someone to watch her, I ordered, wiping away my tears and running away without an answer. I ran out of the pack house and a block away, where our third-in-command lived. Nate! Natalie! I yelled, pounding on the door. A massive clap of thunder was heard from overhead, and it began to rain, and Trina began to cry even harder. The front door opened, and Natalie quickly ushered me in. Long story short, Thomas's mate was taken, and he left last night, and we have to go find them both. Can you please watch Trina? I begged. Of course, Natalie said with a smile, her voice calm and motherly. Thank you so much. I feel really bad for asking because you already have so much going on, but I don't know where else to bring her. I explained. Oh, it's perfectly fine, Natalie assured me. I nodded, then turned my attention to Trina. You're gonna hang out with Nate and Natalie for a while, okay? We're gonna go find your sister, I said. Okay. Please find her, Trina said, hugging me tightly before I handed her off to Natalie, who began to wipe her tears away gently. Thank you so much, I said before running out of the house and back to the pack house in the pouring rain. Xander, Ollie, Tessa, and Aiden were all standing in the entryway with a backpack, and Xander handed me one. What do we do now? Aiden asked me, looking at me with an eager expression, waiting for an answer. Everyone was looking at me eagerly. We follow the path Thomas showed Xander and I yesterday. Chapter 14. I led the group along the path we took yesterday, trying to pick up little clues here and there. But so far, we had nothing. We all went behind trees to shift, and I quickly stripped off my clothes and shifted into my wolf. I grabbed my clothes and threw them in my backpack, zipping it up with my teeth. I grabbed the actual backpack in my mouth and ran out from behind my tree. Xander's huge black wolf was standing there along with Aiden. Ollie came out within the following minute, along with Tessa. We ran to the border and crossed it, and we all sniffed around, trying to catch Thomas's scent. Got it, Tessa said through the mind link. I went over to where she was sniffing and caught his scent. Come on, I said through the mind link, following my twin's scent. We all bolted off and followed the scent until the sun began to set. Phew, we stopped and shifted into human form, except Xander, who went hunting for dinner. I got a fire started, and soon Xander came back with a deer. The worst part of being a wolf was having to kill innocent animals. I once tried to become a vegetarian, but Lily, my wolf, wouldn't have it. I cooked the deer for everyone, and we ate our dinner quietly, then shifted back in our wolf forms and continued to follow Thomas's scent. As the sun began to rise, we reached the border of Quentin's pack. We all shifted and clothed ourselves, but not before I threw up my dinner from the night before. Xander held back my hair for me and soothingly rubbed my back. "Xan," I whimpered once I finished. "What if I'm pregnant?" I whispered. "I don't know," Xander said, helping me up. I shook off the feeling, but Xander didn't look convinced, but he followed my lead. We didn't bother waiting for Quentin's request on his land. He didn't deserve that kind of respect. We were able to sneak past the border patrol without being seen, and I followed Thomas's scent to the pack house. "Quentin," Xander hollered, making everyone outside stop and look at us. The devil himself walked out of his pack house. "I've been expecting you. Now, if you want your pack members back, I want mine back." "I'd say it's a fair trade," he smirked. "They're not coming back to this pack. They willingly came to our pack. You can't rule over them anymore," I shouted. "Quentin, why are you doing this?" Ollie begged. "Because my mate got taken away from me. She rejected me, and I never gave her permission to," he growled. "You never cared for her. You continued to sleep around, and when she rejected you, you killed her. What kind of sick person does that?" Aiden roared, shifting into his wolf and lunging at Quentin. Tessa screamed as Quentin easily threw him against a tree. Tessa ran over to him as he whimpered. "Why are you doing this?" Ollie cried. "Your sister was an ugly woman who doesn't listen to alpha orders," he snarled. "Now, why don't you come back to my pack?" "Smith misses you dearly," Quentin said, an evil and sick smirk spreading across his face. "You said you killed him," Ollie cried. "Oh no. He's been alive this whole time," he said in a sick tone. "Where is he?" Ollie begged. I looked over at Xander, who looked just as confused as I was. "Who is Smith?" "In the cellars." "But I wouldn't go down there if you want to join him," Quentin said. His smirk was making me sick to my stomach. "Please let him go," Ollie begged, tears now pouring down her face. Quentin shook his head. Then he turned back to me and Xander. "Xan, shift on a count of 3. Engage him in a fight, and I'll shift from behind," I said through our mind link. "Now, the Alpha and Luna. 1. You guys are going to be so fun to play with." He began to stalk towards us. 2. Now Taylor. 3. Xander shifted and reached out his paw, 3 claw marks now visible on Quentin's right cheek. "Bastard," he hissed before shifting 2. While Quentin was preoccupied with the fight, I slowly backed away and wrapped around him. I shifted and crept up behind him. I was about to jump on his back and bite into his neck, but he quickly turned around and bit my neck. Hard. I yelped in pain as his teeth tore through my neck, ripping a chunk of flesh along with it. I watched as Quentin fought with Xander, my vision and hearing becoming very blurry. I could faintly hear someone calling out my name, but I couldn't focus enough to know who it was. Minutes passed by and darkness filled my vision. I opened my eyes and could faintly see an outline of shapes in front of me. I felt a squeeze on my hand and looked up, seeing Xander's face. "Oh, thank God," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I could see tears running down his face, and it made my heart swell that he was crying for me. But it also killed me inside to see him like this. I squeezed his hand back in reassurance. I slowly sat up and looked around. 6 other people were in the cell with us. "What happened?" I asked, my voice groggy. "You're awake," Thomas said quietly, running over to me and giving me a bone-crushing hug. "Taylor," Tessa said, hurrying over to us. "You okay?" Xander asked me, and I nodded, giving his hand another squeeze. I looked around, and Mia was standing behind Thomas, and Aiden was pulling Tessa towards him. Ollie was snuggling in the corner with a man I didn't recognize. She gave me a weak smile. "Taylor, this is my mate, Smith," she said, leaning her head on his chest. "And Smith, this is my best friend, Taylor." "Nice to meet you," he said in a quiet voice. He seemed kind of shy but gave me a small, welcoming smile. I smiled back and said, "Nice to meet you too." Xander pulled me in between his legs so that my back was resting against his chest. What happened to me? I asked, craning my neck to look at him. You were about to attack Quentin, but his beta was watching and informed him, and he bit you in the neck. I threw him off of you, but he took a very large chunk of skin with him. Quentin then had some pack members drug me, and that's how we all ended up in here. Mia healed us all perfectly, but you've been out for the past week, he explained. His voice strained the whole time. A week. We've been in here a week. I yelped. I looked up at Xander, and he nodded weakly. What about Trina? They've been giving us all this shot every morning that cuts off the connection with our wolves and our mind link. We haven't been able to get a hold of him, Xander said. Have they been giving me the shot? I asked. His eyes widened, and he quickly shook his head no. Nate. I shouted into my mind link. Taylor. Oh my gosh, is everyone alright? Nate's voice said immediately. Yeah, we're fine. They've been giving everyone a shot that cuts off the mind link and connection with those wolves. I've been out for the past week and haven't gotten it. How's Trina doing? I asked. She hasn't been doing well. All she does is sit with Natalie on the couch all day. She doesn't do or say anything, he explained. Okay, tell her we're all alright and we're gonna find a way out of here, I said. I heard noises coming down the hallways. I have to go, but try to keep me updated. I quickly got back into the position I was in when I woke up minutes before. Everyone understood and nodded to me, and I closed my eyes. Here's dinner, said a gruff voice. I stayed as still as possible, keeping my breathing to a minimum. I heard some crying and sniffling, along with a she needs to wake up. I mentally praised Tessa for that. I heard the footsteps get quieter and quieter, and then heard a metal door slam shut. It's safe, Xander whispered. There was a large tray outside the cell doors with 10 pieces of bread, 1 small cup, and a jug of water on it. We all ate, and then I went back to my position. We need to find a way out now, I said, my voice dead and serious. Chapter 15. Pull. I yelled, and Mia, Xander, and Thomas pulled on one of the metal bars. It moved a couple of centimeters, like it had been for the past 30 minutes. I woke up 3 days ago, and had felt sick each and every morning. I had no idea what was wrong with me, though. I even started crying this morning, thinking it was all my fault we were in here. I think it's probably just being in the cell, with no room to train or shift to do anything. I had kept on pretending to still be out, keeping in touch with Nate. He had come up with the idea of pulling the bars. It was a good idea as it has been working, but barely. Maybe if we have more muscle, we can make it move more, Mia said. We all nodded, and Smith and Aiden both grabbed onto a spot on the bar they could find. I had learned the story behind Smith. He was a rogue who had briefly passed over Quentin's territory without realizing it. Quentin hunted him down, and that's how Ollie had met him. Quentin let them be happy for a week, and then Smith mysteriously disappeared. Quentin told Ollie he had killed him, and it was too soon for Ollie to be able to know through the bond that he was still alive. That was this past summer. Pull. We all pulled, and the bar moved a good foot. Great, now this one, I said, and we all went to the one across from it, ready to pull in the opposite direction to create a hole between the bars. Pull. The bar moved a foot, and we had a big enough hole to escape. Let's go. There's gonna be guards outside, so be prepared to fight, I whispered, and Xander led us out and up the flight of stairs. Ready, he whispered. We all nodded, and he rammed into the metal door along with Thomas, knocking it off the hinges. There were 2 guards, and we easily took them down within seconds. Let's all shift, I whispered, and we did. We ran to the pack house, where we all quietly snuck in. We reached the kitchen, where a couple of pack members were getting a snack. One of the girls looked really scared, and the 2 identical boys looked at us with admiration. We're on your side, one of them said. We all looked taken aback, I guess, because he explained. 4 of our sisters went missing last year, and Quentin said they were probably dead, and it was no use going to look for them. He said if we went looking for them, we would become rogues. You guys came looking for your pack members right away, and we admire that. I know a lot of people in this pack are gonna want to join your pack after you defeat Quentin. Hell, we'll help you, the guy said. His twin and the girl nodded. Thanks, and our pack is always welcome to anybody, Xander smiled. By the way, I'm Ryan, and that's Ross, he introduced, pointing to his twin. And that's Hallie, he said, pointing to the girl. They both gave us a small wave. So, how did you guys escape? He asked. We weren't gonna tell him we had the golden wolf, so I left that part out. We have some alpha and beta blood in our systems, I said. He nodded. Quentin can be so stupid sometimes. He's got the strength he needs, but he never uses his brains, Ryan said. We could tell, I chuckled. We have to get going if we're going to defeat him, but we need the shot that he used on us, I said. They're right in here, Ryan said, leading us into the pantry, which was the size of a large bedroom. He went over to one of the shelves and moved a box of rice, revealing a device with some buttons on it. He quickly typed in a pin, and the shelf next to it slid over, revealing a small cabinet door. Ryan opened it and pulled out 2 shots, ready to use. Just stick them in him, and press down quickly, he explained, handing me the 2. Thanks, can you get some backup, just in case? I asked. Ryan nodded. And you might want to be careful, I know for a fact there's at least 8 girls up there. At least. So cover your eyes, he warned. I knew we all had a look of discomfort across our faces, but I thanked him, and we all went to the top floor, revealing one door. All we could hear were noises from inside, and I shuddered in disgust. That is so gross, Tessa whispered. Guys, I'm really sorry, but we're all gonna be scarred for life after this, I said. It's fine. If we get to defeat Quentin, I'm good, Thomas said. That's the attitude we need. Don't back down and stay safe. Ready? They all nodded. I looked at them, proud of my little army. 1, 2, 3, and I rammed open the door. Chapter 16. I immediately spotted Quentin, along with 9 women in the room with him. 5 of them were near him, and the other 4 were talking amongst themselves. It was uncomfortable to watch. I looked over at Xander, who was staring at Quentin with a cold look in his eyes. I was glad to see all the boys there, as it proved they were all loyal. Quentin gasped at us, and he shifted into his wolf, throwing the women off. Get out, I growled at all of them, and I was intimidating enough that they all grabbed their clothes and ran. Everyone else shifted into their wolves except me. Quentin eyed me but lunged for Ollie, and Smith stood over her in a protective stance as Xander bit Quentin in the side, pulling away immediately. A large chunk of flesh had been torn out of Quentin's side, and it had already weakened him. He really didn't have the brains that a true alpha needed. Quentin was so focused on everyone around him that he didn't notice me coming up behind him and injecting him with the shot. I quickly administered the liquid and jumped away, leaving the shot in him. He shifted back to his human form within a minute. He tried to stand up, but he was too weakened to do so. Xander and Thomas pounced on him, tearing into him until there was nothing left. The smell was overwhelming, and I ran to the connected bathroom, vomiting up my breakfast from the morning before. Xander was by my side, wearing a pair of shorts, holding back my hair and rubbing my back. Why do I keep vomiting? I asked, beginning to cry. SHHHH, I don't know, baby. Come on, let's go home and we'll figure it out there, he said. I nodded and wiped away my tears. I love you, I said, leaning into his side as he wrapped an arm around me. I love you too, he said, kissing my head. Let's go home, guys, he said. Wait, they don't have an alpha anymore. If they want to join our pack, we should let them, I said. Xander smiled at me and nodded. We reached the living room, where Ryan, the beta, called for a meeting using the pack mind link. Within 15 minutes, most of the pack was there. Who are you? Somebody called out. Yeah, and where's Alpha Quentin? Somebody else shouted. My name is Xander. I'm the alpha of the Riverstone pack, and this is my mate, Taylor. That is my beta, Thomas, and his mate, Mia. And you may recognize Ollie and Aiden. That is my mate's younger sister, Tessa, and that is Ollie's mate, Smith, Xander shouted, introducing us all. Your alpha was a mentally sick man. First, he met his mate. He didn't reject her and wouldn't let her reject him, and continued to sleep around. When Anna, Ollie, and Aiden switched packs, Anna rejected him before she left. I looked over at Aiden, and he was wiping away the one tear that had escaped. Ollie, on the other hand, had tears already streaming down her face. Smith wrapped an arm around her and pulled her into a hug. When he found out Anna had rejected him, he got furious. And when the three joined our pack, he came and killed Anna. Gasps were heard around the room, and conversations immediately formed. Quiet. I called out, and everyone stopped and looked at us again. Then Quentin came and talked to me. He said since we stole some of his pack members, he was going to steal some of ours. We didn't steal any pack members. We offered for them to join our pack, and they wanted to, for family reasons. Then, almost 2 weeks ago, we found 2 of our pack members dead, and one of our pack members had been taken. Everyone looked at us with wide eyes, silently begging us to complete the story. Thomas's mate, Mia, had been taken. We caught her scent and followed it, but it disappeared at the border. The next morning, Thomas was gone. We all went out to find him, and that's when Quentin captured all of us. Now, the story of Smith here is just as terrible. He was a rogue who briefly passed through your territory, not knowing it. When Quentin found him and brought him back, Smith and Ollie found out they were mates. Quentin made them think that they could be a happy couple, but a week after he took Smith, he locked him away and told Ollie that he killed him. Everyone gasped, and a very pregnant lady started crying. Her mate began to comfort her. We were able to all escape, and we killed Quentin. Some people looked relieved, while others appeared beyond angry, and some were simply happy. Ryan, would you like to be the alpha? Xander asked. Ryan nodded proudly. Xander, already being an alpha and being the one to kill Quentin, had the authority to appoint the pack a new alpha if he didn't rightfully want it. Ryan became the new alpha, and Ross took the beta leadership. The second we reached our pack land, Mia and I ditched the group and ran to Nate's house. I knocked on it and was met by Natalie, who engulfed us both in a hug. It must have been terrible having to go through something like that. She cried. Mia? Asked a small voice. Trina was peeking around the corner. Oh my God, Trina. Mia gasped, running over and grabbing her sister. She held on to her for dear life, whispering soothing words into her ear. I'm so sorry you had her for almost 2 weeks. The plan was to get in, kill Quentin, rescue Mia and Thomas, and get out. I didn't know we would get thrown into the cellars, I said, hugging Natalie. Oh, it's fine. You didn't know, she assured. I'm just glad you're all okay. If you ever need someone to watch the kids, I'll do it for free, I offered. I wouldn't ask that of you, Natalie laughed. But I feel terrible you had an extra kid for 2 weeks. I debated. Taylor, you had important business to take care of, and you needed somebody to watch Trina. We're part of a pack. We all help each other in a time of need, Natalie said. I nodded because I knew she was right. All right, now why don't you go home and lay in a nice, comfortable bed and get as much sleep as you need, Natalie smiled. Okay, I smiled. Mia picked Trina up and walked out with me, a relieved smile on her face. It feels good to be home, she said softly. It does feel good to be home. Chapter 17. I opened my eyes, and it was still dark out. I rolled into Xander and popped my head up, looking at the alarm clock. 5:34, I groaned at how early it was. My stomach churned, and I bolted up, running to the bathroom and vomiting my dinner from last night. Why does this keep happening? I groaned. I leaned over the toilet again and felt someone pulling back my hair. Sparks shot through my body as Xander soothingly rubbed his hand up and down my back. I'm taking you to the pack doctor right now, he said once we knew I was done. I didn't argue because I wanted to know what was wrong with me. Xander carried me back to the bed, and judging by the blank look on his face, he was mind-linking the pack doctor, Trinity. Change into some clothes, he said, and I knew exactly what he meant. I was wearing nothing but his t-shirt from yesterday. I went into the closet and changed into some black leggings, a black sports bra, a tight white t-shirt, and a mint green sweatshirt. Let's go, I said. Xander had changed into a pair of black sweats and a gray t-shirt. He grabbed my hand, and we walked to the Pack Hospital, which was an average-sized 2-story building across the street from the Pack House. We walked in, and Maria was sitting at the desk, on the verge of falling asleep. Hello, Alpha and Luna. What can I do for you? She asked, sitting up straight. I need a checkup on Taylor. The past 2 weeks she's been vomiting every morning, Xander explained. A knowing smile crossed her face immediately. Alrighty, let me call Trinity, she smiled, picking up the phone. Yes, I have the Alpha and Luna in here, and the Luna needs a checkup. She paused. Alrighty, I'll send them in. You can just go right on into room 7, Maria said, pointing to the hallway. Thank you, I said, and followed Xander to room 7. We walked right in and were met by the main nurse, Trinity. Alpha, Luna, she said respectfully. I smiled at her. So, what can I do for you today? She smiled, pointing to the 2 seats across from the desk. The past 2 weeks I've been waking up early and vomiting, but I don't feel sick ever, I said. She had the same knowing smile that Maria had. Okay, I'll just have you hop up on the bed, and I'm gonna do an ultrasound, she smiled. I took my sweatshirt off and hopped up on the bed. Xander sat in the chair next to me, holding my hand tightly. I'm just going to lift up your shirt and squirt the gel on your stomach, Maria explained. I nodded nervously. She lifted up my shirt to right below my breast and squirted the gel across my stomach. She laughed genuinely as I shivered. She took the little sensor and began to rub it over my stomach, spreading out the gel. She turned towards the TV, which was hidden from mine and Xander's view, and looked at it closely. After a couple of minutes, which felt like the longest minutes of my life, she turned back to us with a gigantic smile on her face. Well, congratulations you two, you're pregnant. What? Really? I asked in barely a whisper. She nodded excitedly. You're about a month into the pregnancy. So from now, I'm gonna have you come in once a month, but the 6th month of your pregnancy it'll be bumped up to once a week, she explained. I was too shocked to say anything, so I just nodded. Well, thank you, Trinity. We're really sorry for coming in this early, Xander said with a smile, and I knew him too well that he could barely contain his excitement. It's no problem. Congrats again, and I'll see you in a month. And by the way, Taylor, happy birthday, Maria said. Oh my gosh, it's my birthday today. I screamed excitedly. Trinity laughed. Just schedule an appointment about a month from now with Maria and you're free to go, she laughed, leading us out. Congrats guys, you're due back around January 8th, and any time will work, Maria said. Will 10 a.m. work? Xander asked. Yep, Maria said, typing it into the computer. Alright, I'll see you guys in a month, and happy birthday, Taylor. Thanks, I laughed, and we walked out. It was still early, and Xander and I walked across the street and back to our apartment. We're having a baby, I whispered as we curled up on the couch. Xander rubbed my tummy. You're gonna make a great mother, he whispered in my ear. And you're going to make a wonderful daddy, I giggled. What do you think it is? I asked, curling up closer to him. I don't know, but I'm fine with a boy or a girl, he said, nuzzling his nose into my neck. I'm excited. I've always wanted to be a mom, I sighed. And our baby's going to have the best daddy, I smiled, looking up at my mate. I think the baby's gonna love its mommy more, Xander smirked, moving his head so his lips were centimeters away from mine. I don't know about that, I whispered, pressing my lips to his. I was lightly pushed, so my back was on the sofa, Xander hovering over me. I pulled his shirt up and over his head, smiling as his lips connected with my neck. Is it okay to be close while you're pregnant? Xander whispered softly in my ear. I've heard it's fine as long as we're careful, I whispered back. Good. Thomas. I screamed, shooting up and running out of the room. I heard him laugh as he ran. I heard Xander behind me as we ran down the stairs. I didn't care that we both looked like rainbows. Happy birthday. I heard him yell. Thomas, come back here this instant if you want your birthday present. I yelled. I heard him turn around, and I mind-linked Ollie, Aiden, Tessa, and Mia to meet us in our apartment. I told Ollie to bring Smith. Why do we have to wait for them? Thomas whined as I used a towel to get the paint out of my hair. I had already changed clothes so that the furniture wouldn't be rainbow patterned too. Once our friends got there, Xander and I stood up. By the way, Thomas, this is just a very special announcement, not your birthday present. It's mine, I informed him. He looked at me like I was speaking whale. Get on with it. Ollie laughed. Well, we found out I was pregnant this morning, I said excitedly. Thomas just sat in his seat while everyone else started congratulating us. No emotion was shown on his face. "Yay, I'm so happy for you," Ollie screamed, coming up and wrapping me in a big hug, being careful around my stomach. She got down on her knees. "Now you listen here, baby. Your mommy is one of the best people in the world, so don't you dare give her a hard time. And if you do, your godmother won't spoil you," she said, making everyone laugh. "Congrats," Aiden and Tessa said, both hugging me. "I'm so happy for you," Mia smiled, hugging me. "I'm happy for you too," Thomas smiled, pulling me into a tight hug. "Thank you," I whispered. Chapter 18. "Xander, it's perfect," I exclaimed, walking into the last room of the house. I figured it would just be easier to move into the perfect house the first time. I smiled at him as we walked around the house again. It had 8 bedrooms, all with their own bathroom and balcony. There was a huge pool outside with 2 water slides and a diving board, along with a hot tub. The yard was huge, so we would be able to get a swing set for our child and still have room to play with everything. There was a media room and a playroom in the house, which would be perfect. The house was perfect. "I love it, and I love you," I smiled, kissing Xander. "Happy birthday," he whispered against my lips. "I have one more birthday present for you." He pulled away from me, making Lily whimper. "Taylor, I've known you for my whole life, and you've been my best friend for my whole life. And when we found out we were mates, I was glad it was you. And I just wanted to ask you if you would marry me," he asked, getting down on one knee and pulling out a velvet box, opening it to reveal a small diamond ring. I smiled and nodded. "Yes, of course I will," I smiled, tears brimming in my eyes. I laughed as I wiped them away. Xander stood up and placed the ring on my finger. He then wrapped his arms around me and twirled me around. "I love you, but we should probably go furniture shopping. I have someone dropping by all our personal items off, but not the furniture," he smiled. "Come on then, let's go," I said excitedly, pulling him out the door. We ran to the car and he drove to the nearest furniture store. We only found a master bedroom set and a dining room set that we liked, so we purchased them and set them to be delivered at 5. We got back in the car and drove to another furniture store. "So do you think you want to find out what the baby's gender is?" I asked, holding Xander's hand as he drove to the next store. "Whatever you want, I'll be okay with," he smiled. I want it to be a surprise. And if it's a surprise, then the nursery has to be an okay theme for a boy and a girl, I said. Like maybe a jungle theme. That would be cool. Then a jungle-themed nursery it is. Xander laughed at my childishness. We spent the rest of the day going furniture shopping, and by 5, most of it was delivered. "I can't wait to decorate the house," I said excitedly. "I love you," Xander laughed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "And I love our baby too." My heart melted at those words. "I love our baby too," I said, putting my hands on my stomach and looking down at it. There was a small bump, barely noticeable. You would only be able to see it if you were looking closely. "You don't love me?" Xander asked, and I could hear the pout in his voice. "I love you too," I giggled, turning around in his arms and kissing him. It was one of those slow and meaningful kisses where you poured all your heart and all your love into it. It was breathtaking. Literally. We both pulled away, gasping for air. Our foreheads were still touching as we both breathed heavily, filling our lungs with much-needed air. I looked into his eyes, and they were pitch black. "I want one more birthday present," I whispered. Xander picked me up bridal style in one swift movement, and within seconds, my back was against the brand-new sheets on our bed. "What is this last birthday present you want?" Xander asked with a playful tone. "You." It was one of the best birthday presents ever. I woke up and didn't care about waking Xander up, not wanting to empty my stomach on the brand new floors. I ran to the bathroom and felt Xander pull back my hair right away. When I had finished, I brushed my teeth and crawled back into bed with Xander. "It's nice to know why I'm puking now," I joked. "Yeah," Xander said, and minutes later, I heard his soft snores. I soon followed his lead. I woke up a couple of hours later, and Xander was still asleep. I slowly shimmied out of his arms and crept downstairs, glad that he thought about filling the kitchen with food before we moved in. I made a huge breakfast of pancakes, waffles, eggs, bacon, sausage, biscuits, and gravy, and toast. Not only would he eat half of it, but I was eating for two here. I smell something delicious. Xander yawned, and his eyes widened at the feast in front of him. I really love you right now, he said before shoving his face into a pancake. I laughed and whipped some gravy at him. He gasped and whipped his head at me. You didn't, he growled, the smallest hint of joking in his tone. Oh, but I did, I said in a leisurely tone, spreading some whipped cream on a giant pancake. I walked up to him, pancake in my hand, and smiled. I love you, I said with a sweet smile, before smashing it in his face. Oh, that's it, he laughed. He lunged for the counter, grabbing a spoon and the container of whipped cream, and whipped it at my face. It hit my eyebrow and began to slide down my face. I growled playfully and grabbed some syrup and a waffle. I quickly drowned the waffle in the sticky substance and smashed it on his face. He ripped it off, and his face was covered in syrup, gravy, and whipped cream. I couldn't help but crack up. I didn't see what he was doing until I felt syrup dripping down my back and face, and I still thought it piling on my head. Xander! I screamed and began to cry. Why did you do that? We ruined breakfast, and I worked so hard on making it. I sobbed. SHHHH, baby. Everything's gonna be alright. We still have a ton of food, he said softly, but his voice hid a smile. You're laughing. I yelled, pounding on his chest as I began to cry harder. He grabbed onto my cheeks to try to stop me. Shh, it's okay, he said with a smile. Stop, just stop. I cried, rolling my hands away from his grasp and running out the back door. Taylor, come back. I'm sorry. Xander called after me. Shut up. I called as I ran into the forest, shifting into my wolf and bolting off. I reached the clearing, knowing Xander would look here first, so I crossed it and began to explore. Now that I think about it, I don't even know why I was crying. It was stupid, really. I had initiated the food fight and then started crying when my mate fought back. I heard a crack and whipped my head around. Vagina stood there with a smirk, wearing a crop top and a skirt. I shifted and growled at her. What are you doing in our packlands? Looking for you. Why? I sneered, trying to wipe the syrup from my face. She laughed at me. Why the hell do you look like you drowned yourself in a breakfast bar? She smirked. Food fight, I smirked back. She scoffed. You see, I don't know why Xander would want someone like you as his mate. You're still so immature. I mean, that's so childish. You know, Xander was the one I was competing against, I growled. He would never do something like that. You're just saying he did it with you, so I'll back off. Well, I hate to break it to you, but Xander's into more mature women, not someone like you, she said with a smile that seemed too smug. Well, I hate to break it to you, I mimicked in a high-pitched voice. But this just got real, I growled with a serious face. Chapter 19. I've known Xander since I was in the hospital the day I was born, and he's been my best friend ever since. And if anyone truly knows him, it's me. And he is anything but mature, I shot at her. Vagina just scoffed. Oh honey, whether Xander is mature or not, everyone knows that I would make a better Luna. And when I give birth to his children, they will be stronger than yours would ever be, she smiled. My wolf growled at the thought of them being together, but I just laughed because I knew it would never happen. I beat you to it, I laughed, shaking my head. What the hell are you even talking about? She asked, her face holding a look of surprise. I beat you to it. As in 5 months, I'm giving birth to our child. As in, I'm pregnant, I said slowly. You are not pregnant. I'd be surprised if you guys have already had sex. At least I would give him what he wants when he wants it, she scoffed, looking at me in disgust. I don't know why I hadn't fought back yet, but I was enjoying this little argument. I could already tell I was going to win. I'm pretty sure if I'm pregnant, I would have already had sex, I smirked. And if you don't believe me, look closely. I turned to the side, and she stared at my stomach before a look of anger covered her face. She quickly replaced it with an evil smile and looked back up at me. Oh honey, you're not pregnant. That's just fat, she laughed. Would you stop calling me honey? You're not my mother, and you aren't smarter than me, I yelled. She only smiled. Whatever you say. but we all know that Xander will eventually end up with me, and you'll just be a broke woman who doesn't know right from left," she sneered. I don't know if it was the way she talked to me or the fact that she insulted me, but Lily was beyond angry and shifted, lunging at the real troublemaker. "What the heck? Bitch!" She yelped before shifting into a swampy brown wolf, who looked more like a dog. I could take her down easily. We immediately began to fight, and I was careful to keep her away from my stomach. Still, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Lily immediately regretted starting a fight, but knew we couldn't stop. "Taylor!" I heard Xander yell, and he shifted and dove in between me and the dog. He was a little taller than me, and he easily towered over Vagina. He shifted and growled lowly at her. "What are you doing?" he said in a deep, low voice. The look on Vagina's face as she shifted was easily defined as fear. "She started it," she managed to say, stuttering. "I'm pretty sure she had a reason to," Xander growled. "She was saying that I really wasn't pregnant and I was just fat." I began to cry. "She said that everyone knew you two would end up together and I would be a broke woman," Xander growled, but I finished, who didn't know her left from her right. I was now crying from all the hurtful things, and Vagina was sitting there holding back a laugh. "Did you really say those things?" Xander said in such a low voice that it was also scaring me. "It's the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts," Vagina snapped. Xander grabbed her in midair and held her back. "I'm giving you 1 minute to get off my packlands, and if you're not off my territory at the end of the 60 seconds, I will make sure you leave permanently." "Understood." Xander growled at her. She nodded weakly. "Glad we understand each other." "Now go," he said, letting go of her. She scrambled up and began to run. "We're following her to make sure," he whispered. I didn't feel like running right now, so when Xander shifted, I hopped on his back. I clung to his fur and closed my eyes as he quietly followed Vagina, but she wasn't taking the route to leave the packlands. "Xan, don't do anything rash. Let's see what she's up to," I whispered. The wolf nodded its head and continued following Vagina. She crossed the borders, but we stayed hidden as we followed. About a mile off the border, she came to a stop in front of a group of about 20 people. "All right, they think they scared me, but they're wrong. All I want you guys to do is grab the Luna and run," she ordered. "Xan, what is she talking about?" I whispered. "I think she's planning on kidnapping you. Then she'll think I'll fall for her. Her mind has linked me." "Gross," I giggled. "I know, right?" Xander laughed. "Thomas, Aiden, and Smith, we need help. Come to the southern border and be as quiet as possible." I mind-linked the 3 boys. Then I mind-linked some of our best warriors so the group wouldn't stand a chance. Vagina was just going over the plan again, which was really foolish and wouldn't have worked even if they tried. The men soon approached us and I hid in a bush, not wanting to risk losing my baby. They were all already in wolf form, so they all made themselves visible for the men to see. Regina," one of the men said, pointing behind her. She turned around and gasped, fear written all over her face. She quickly wiped it off and turned back to her men. "I don't want any of them to survive. Kill them." They all lunged, and as I watched their fighting techniques, I knew the war already had a clear winner. We killed them off quickly, and all that was left was Regina. Xander shifted and walked up to her. "Why won't you give up already?" he growled. "Because we all know that the moon goddess made a mistake when she placed you with that woman," Vagina snarled back. "Do not call my mate names," Xander growled in a low, threatening tone. "Why not? She's a woman who deserves to rot for stealing my man." "Where is she anyway?" "I bet she's with somebody else right now," Vagina laughed. "Taylor would never do that," Thomas growled, approaching her. I mind-linked Ollie, Tessa, and Mia, telling Mia to leave Trina with Natalie. I felt bad again, but we needed them, and Natalie loved Trina. "Are you sure?" Vagina sneered, thinking she knew everything. "Yeah, I'm positive you were doing whatever it took to get people to listen to you," Thomas smirked. A blush appeared on her cheeks, and she feigned a gasp. "How dare you accuse me of such a thing? I am your future Luna, and you will treat me with respect," she shrieked. That was my cue. I walked over to Xander, who pulled me into his side immediately. "Back off," I said firmly. "Honey, stop calling me that." We all know who the real troublemaker around here is, Vagina smirked. Oh, this just got real. Ollie growled, stalking out with Tessa and Mia flanking her. And that is precisely why Ollie is my best friend. Chapter 20. We all know that you were messing around with those men. Don't deny it, Thomas growled. So what if I was? It didn't mean anything. Vagina tried to defend herself. When she noticed no one was buying it, she spoke again. I like attention, big deal. I'm pretty sure you'll do anything for attention, Ollie said sarcastically, rolling her eyes with a smirk. So what if I will? It's just practice for when Xander and I are together. I growled lowly and tried to keep my wolf down for my baby's sake. Shut up. When will you realize that Xander only has eyes for one girl and it's not you? Thomas shouted. The day that I die, Vagina growled. Not gonna take very long for that to happen, Tessa muttered. I couldn't help but smile at my sister. You little troublemaker. Vagina screamed, lunging for my sister. No, I screamed. Aiden growled and jumped at Vagina, knocking her to the floor. She groaned and held her ribs. You broke my ribs, jerk, she spat. He growled at her before running to Tessa to see if she was okay. I'm giving you 10 seconds to drop this and leave, or you'll regret it, Xander growled. I'd rather keep teasing you, she smiled, walking up to him. Back off, he's taken, I snarled, stepping in front of him. Oh, but darling, why would he want a girl like you when he could have someone like me? Vagina smirked, pushing me aside and running her hands up Xander's chest. He was already pushing her off, but I attacked her. Troublemaker. She screamed and lunged for me. Xander grabbed her and pushed her to the floor. I really didn't want to do that, but our lives would have been miserable with her still alive, he said. I nodded and wrapped my arms around his side. I heard the others leave to give us some alone time. I'm sorry for running off earlier, but these darn hormones are all over the place, I laughed. It's fine, he said, leaning down on his knees. I placed his hands lightly on my stomach and sighed in relief. The baby's heart is still beating, but please no more stunts like that, he begged as he pulled me on his back and ran toward the house. I tucked my face into the crook of his neck for 2 reasons, to stop the tears from coming because of the wind and because he smelled good. We reached our brand new house and I couldn't help but smile, our home. Xander opened the kitchen door and the remnants of our food fight were still everywhere and I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Let's eat, I said, still laughing. I helped myself to a massive plate of biscuits and gravy, some pancakes, a waffle with more whipped cream than waffle, and some sausage. Xander helped himself to bigger portions. We sat at the new breakfast set, which was a little white round table with 4 light gray chairs, and I was going to get different colored cushions for each chair. The set thankfully remained untouched by food. I'm glad that Regina's gone, I sighed, shoving the first bite of my biscuits and gravy in my mouth. I was immediately in heaven. I was thankful my mom's family had such a good gravy recipe. Xander laughed at my reaction before he tried it too. Oh, how I've missed this gravy. I burst out into laughter. We should set up for the holidays today, I said excitedly. I began to get really excited, realizing Christmas was only 2 weeks away. Oh my gosh, I haven't even started Christmas shopping, I gasped. Baby, calm down, you'll be fine. You've always been a quick Christmas shopper. And I think setting up for Christmas is a great idea, Xander smiled, giving me a quick kiss before getting up and putting his dishes in the sink. We have to clean up first, though. I groaned, but got up and began to help him. We washed the floors and cabinets and put away the leftover food. Where are all of our Christmas decorations? I asked once we finished. They're in the storage room downstairs. I'll carry them, though, he said quickly. I can carry smaller bins, I pouted. Maybe, Xander said slowly with a hint of a smile. I followed him downstairs and jumped on his back the second he reached the floor. Whoa, he laughed, but held onto my legs as he headed towards the back of the basement. In the storage room were a lot of bins, and 3 were about 5 or 6 bins labeled Christmas, and a giant box that could only be the Christmas tree. We spent the rest of the day decorating for Christmas, and we invited everyone over for dinner that night. Wait, it's almost Christmas. Ollie screamed when she saw all the decorations. Yeah, I know, I laughed, hugging her. By the way, you're late. I said 6, and it's 6:30, I pointed out. What can I say? I like to arrive fashionably late, she said in a British accent. I looked at her questioningly, and she looked at me with her big brown eyes. We suddenly began cracking up, and Smith looked at us with a hint of a smile before I brought them into the living room. So this is your new house, Ollie said, looking around. Yep, this is where I live now, I said, plopping down on the couch. I like it, she smiled, plopping down next to me. That's what I said, Tessa laughed, curled up next to Aiden. I was just thinking we could order pizza and have a movie night, I proposed. Works for me, Mia said. Pizza sounds good, Smith nodded. I love pizza. Ollie and Thomas shouted at the same time, both jumping off the couches. Jinx. Jinx again. They then began to sing a duet of Frozen's Love is an Open Door. Our mental synchronization can have but one explanation. You, Thomas, and I, Ollie, were Thomas. Just Ollie. Meant to be. They both belted out. We all clapped and cheered and laughed. I have no words, I said, doubling over in laughter. You guys should totally be on American Idol, Mia said loudly, tears streaming down her face from laughing so hard. It's a no from me, Aiden said in a Simon Cowell voice, making us all start to laugh even harder. Damn, and we were just starting to calm down, Ollie laughed. So where's Xander? Thomas asked, lying back with his hands behind his head. He went to pick up pizza. We ordered before everyone got here, knowing everyone would be cool with pizza. We ordered from the pizza place that just opened up in town. I forgot the name. Addie's, Ollie immediately said. Yeah, but they don't deliver. So we ordered on the phone and he went to pick it up. He should be back soon though, I assured. Good, because I'm starving, Thomas exaggerated. Same, Ollie said in some weird voice. So, who's up for a game of truth or dare? I asked, a smirk on my face. Chapter 21. Let me just say, daring Thomas to jump in the pool was the highlight of my day. A heavenly scent filled my nose, and Xander walked around the house, balancing 10 pizzas in each hand. Oh my gosh. I laughed, running over to help him. I grabbed most of the pile from one hand, gave him a quick kiss, and balanced the pizza boxes in both my hands. Thomas and Ollie went over to help him too. We went inside and into the living room, scattering the boxes everywhere. What movie? I asked, looking in the giant cabinet. Frozen. Ollie screamed. I laughed, but pulled out the Disney movie and put it in the DVD player. The window is open, so's that door. I belted out. Ollie began to sing it with me. I didn't know they did that anymore. Who knew we owned 1,000 salad plates? We both took a deep breath and continued, with Thomas joining. For years I've roamed these empty halls. Why have a ballroom with no balls? Finally, they're opening up the gates. Tessa, Mia, and Aiden both joined in. They'll be actual real live people. It'll be totally strange. But wow, am I so ready for this change. 'Cause for the first time in forever. By now, everyone was singing except for Smith, who was laughing. We continued the song and got a round of applause from him once we finished. All the pizzas were quickly gone as we laughed and joked about the most random of things. Taylor, can I talk to you for a moment? Tessa asked, earning suspicious looks from everyone around us. I nodded and led her out back and through the woods so no one could eavesdrop on us. You have to promise you won't get mad, she said quietly, looking anywhere but me. Tessa, I'm not going to get mad. What's up? I asked softly, wrapping an arm around her in a comforting gesture. Well, I'm kinda pregnant, she said so quietly that I barely heard it. I stopped walking and turned to face her. When did you find out? I asked, staring at her with wide eyes. Just this afternoon. I haven't even told Aiden yet. I don't know what he would say. I know he wants kids, but I'm only 16. We only met 2 months ago and we're already going to have a child together. Oh God, what if he doesn't want it? She rambled, tears forming in her eyes. Hey, Tessa, he's your mate. I don't think it matters to him when you two have a child together. I know it's not ideal since you are only 16, but I'll support you through it, I said. Anyways, if it makes you feel any better, Mom was 16 when she had Thomas and me. That actually does make me feel better, Tessa laughed, wiping the tears away. What should I tell everyone else? Tell Aiden tonight. Wait to tell everyone for a little while. I'll tell Thomas for you if you want, I offered. Please do, she laughed. Let's go back now before they get even more suspicious. 2 weeks later, I opened my eyes and almost screamed. Xander's brown eyes were centimeters away from mine. Merry Christmas, baby, he whispered, pressing his lips to mine. Merry Christmas, I whispered back. Now let's go see if Santa came. I yelled jokingly. Yay, presents, Xander said giddily, clapping his hands as he ran after me. I laughed as he continued to act like a child on Christmas instead of an 18-year-old. You're so childish, I giggled. And you aren't, he retorted in a playful voice, placing his hands on his hips. I laughed again. You got me, I sighed, a smile on my face. That's why I love you, Xander said, wrapping his arms around my waist and picking me up, swinging me around. Be careful, I squealed, laughing. We reached the living room, and it really did look like Santa had come. I had Thomas dress up as Santa and drop off presents. He was doing it anyway for Mia, so I thought why not? Xander admitted. Seriously, I gasped. It's been his lifelong dream to be Santa, Xander defended. Please tell me you got a picture, I said, my voice serious. What kind of person do you think I am? Of course I did, Xander gasped in mock horror, throwing a hand on his chest. Well, anyways, if Santa came we might as well open presents, I said cheekily. Yes, open this one first, Xander said quickly, handing me a small package that was very light. I ripped off the wrapping paper and there was a small box. I opened the box and there was only white tissue paper. I carefully unfolded it and all that was there was Thomas dressed up as Santa. Thank you, I laughed, setting it on the floor next to me. Don't worry, I got you real presents too, Xander laughed. That is a real present, I chuckled. Well, we should invite everyone over. And after presents are opened, I have to go over to the pack house and make dinner with everyone else. I wasn't able to make pie for Thanksgiving, so I promised for Christmas I would, I explained. Of course, Xander smiled, rolling his eyes. I mind-linked our friends, and they all arrived in half an hour, each couple bringing a bucket full of presents. Taylor, Trina screamed, running over to me. Guess who came last night? She said excitedly. Who came? I asked with just as much enthusiasm, already knowing the answer. Santa. He came and brought me presents. Can we open them? Please, please, please. She begged. Of course, I laughed. I wanted to pick her up, but feared harming my baby. You could see a slight bump now, which was really exciting. We all opened presents, which took a good 2 hours. Trina was eagerly sitting next to Thomas, who was trying to get her new doll out of the package. Hurry up, she urged, giggling. I was happy to see her finally smiling and laughing. She was actually becoming one of the most energetic little girls I've ever met. I talked to Mia about it, and we think she was just so quiet in those old packs because of the way everyone was treating her. Hurry up, Tommy. I want my dolly, she laughed, trying to help. Yeah, she's also starting to call Thomas Tommy. She's gotten so comfortable around everyone in the last month. It truly is fantastic. I'm going to go get ready, and I'll meet you all at the pack house, I said with a smile after everyone had finished opening presents. I need to get ready too, Ollie laughed. Same, Tessa and Mia repeated at the same time. We all laughed. I'll see you guys later, I said with a smile, watching them all leave. Now let's go get ready, I laughed, hopping on Xander's back. He ran upstairs and into our master bedroom. You go take a shower, I'll pick out your outfit, I ordered. He pouted. But I want you to take a shower with me, he whined. I looked at him. Xander, if I took a shower with you today, we wouldn't leave until at least tonight. But I promise you tonight, I hinted, running into the closet. I heard him growl, but I heard him walk into the bathroom and turn the shower on. I picked out a pair of dark wash jeans and a red sweater for him. For myself, I chose a red long-sleeved sweater dress, black leggings, and brown knee-high boots. Within an hour, we were ready to go to the pack house. Xander drove us over there, and I immediately headed to the kitchen to get started on the pie. I was immediately bombarded with questions about the baby. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? I'm so excited. I can't believe you're pregnant. I'm gonna be an auntie. That one came from Ollie. We're gonna keep the gender a surprise, I laughed. And I'm excited too. We all got back to work making dinner, dessert, and a huge feast that could feed an army. Or a pack of hungry werewolves. It was probably one of the best Christmases ever. Chapter 22. 5 months later. I bolted up in my bed, sitting in a wet substance. But I hadn't wet the bed since I was 4. And then a shot of pain went through me, and I gasped. Xander, I managed to say, and he was immediately sitting up and cradling me, worry filling his eyes. I think the baby's coming. Xander's eyes became wide in the dark, and he quickly picked me up bridal style. I need to change first, I groaned. He only nodded and rushed to the dresser. He pulled out some black capri leggings, a black sports bra, and a light pink zip-up sweatshirt. He helped me change into my clothes, slipped some shoes on my feet, and grabbed my hospital bag, which had been packed for 2 weeks now, from the corner of the room and rushed out. He ran out to the garage and gently set me in the passenger seat. Another shock of pain went through me. Oh my God, I gasped. Xander threw the duffel bag into the back seat and sped around to the driver's seat. He hopped in and quickly started the car, driving towards the hospital. He grabbed my hand, and whenever a contraction hit, I squeezed it. His hand had red imprints of mine on it, and I'm pretty sure it was gonna bruise. Another contraction hit a block away from the hospital. Why the hell did you get me pregnant? I groaned, squeezing his hand as hard as I could. He groaned. Taylor, as soon as this is all over, you won't regret it. You'll have a little baby to hold in your arms, and they'll just be the most precious thing in the world, he said. His words helped, and I stopped criticizing him for getting me pregnant because he was right. I would not regret it later. He pulled into the parking lot and picked me up bridal style again, leaving the bag in the back seat. I wouldn't need it right now. He rushed me in, and Maria immediately rushed us into a room where nurses began to prepare me for everything. Okay, you're ready to start pushing, Trinity said. I groaned. 6 hours later, and I was only just ready to start. Labor is tough, and I don't recommend it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. I pushed and yelled out in pain. I squeezed Xander's hand in one of mine and grasped onto the sheets with the other. I pushed for a couple more minutes, too wrapped up in the pain and pushing to know, actually, how much time had passed. I see the head, Trinity said excitedly. I pushed for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was probably no more than an hour. I heard the sound of crying and took a deep breath. That was definitely the most painful experience I've ever had. It's a boy, Trinity exclaimed, washing him off and covering him with a blanket before handing him to me. One of the nurses helped me sit up in bed, and I held the baby boy close to me. My baby boy. I looked up at Xander, and he was crying, staring at our son. Are you crying? I laughed. What? He asked, shooting his head up to look at me. Oh, no, I was just. He trailed off and wiped his face quickly. All the nurses and I laughed. I looked back down at our son. He opened his eyes, and I looked between Xander and him a couple of times. He looks just like you, I whispered, stroking my son's face. Xander leaned over, but I slowly scooted over on the bed to make room for him. He crawled in next to me. I'll be back in about 20 minutes, just to make sure he's all right and everything, Trinity winked before leaving the room. All the nurses had already left, leaving Xander and me alone with our son. He has your nose though, Xander said, staring into his eyes. He's beautiful, I sighed, also staring into his eyes. His big brown eyes were looking between mine and Xander's, full of curiosity. My son would prefer to be called handsome, not beautiful, Xander scoffed. But he looks just like you, and you're beautiful, I said, drawing out the word. He scoffed again. We both prefer the term handsome, he scowled. There's only allowed to be one baby here. You have to be the daddy now, I whispered, turning back to our son. I love the sound of that. Daddy, Xander smiled. Mommy and Daddy, I corrected him. Daddy and Mommy, he corrected me. No, it's always been Mommy and Daddy, and it always will be, I said sternly. He looked me in the eyes and immediately looked into our son's eyes instead. I turned back to him, too. What should we name him? Xander asked after a couple of minutes. His middle name is Joshua. After your dad, I said immediately, but I was stumped on his first name. I looked at our son, examining each and every facial feature. How about Sawyer? Xander suggested. Sawyer Joshua Whitefield, I tried out, a smile appearing on my face. Yeah, I like that. I looked back up at my mate, who was staring at our son, so much love for him already clear. We have a family now, he whispered. Yeah, we do. And it's just getting started, I smiled, leaning up and planting a small kiss on his lips. Chapter 23. Sawyer. I called and sat down on one of the chairs. I put my face in my hands and sighed softly. You better be easier than your brother, I told my huge stomach. Kick. Yes, Mommy. Sawyer asked sweetly, bouncing into the kitchen. I looked up and didn't have to ask the question to know the answer, but I did anyway. Did you eat the chocolate cake? Yes, Mommy, he said happily. Why? Because it looked really good and my tummy told me that it wanted to eat it, so I did, he explained, making the cutest little hand motions with fingers covered in chocolate. So your tummy told you it was okay to eat, I said slowly. Yes, Mommy, he said, a huge smile on his face. Okay, I sighed, not having the energy to punish him. The little 5-year-old had too much energy for someone who was 5 months pregnant. Let's get you cleaned up, then we'll go see a movie, I said, wanting to get out of the house. Okay. Daddy also said that we could eat the cake. He ate it with me, he said, bouncing over to the sink and stepping up on the stool. I heard a groan from the room down the hall. A door opened and footsteps came into the kitchen. Would you like to explain? I asked, crossing my arms as I stood up. Well, it looked good and Sawyer really wanted it, he defended. I rolled my eyes. You're going to the store and buying me another chocolate cake. Your daughter would like some, I said sternly, gesturing to my stomach. Whatever you two want, Xander said, putting a nervous smile on his face. Great, now would you like to go see a movie with us? I invited Sawyer to wash his hands. Can we go see Big Hero 6? Sawyer asked as he stepped down from the stool, drying his hands. We just saw that last weekend, I said, grabbing a wet washcloth to wash his face. I know, but it's a really good movie. Please, Mommy. My heart still warmed every time he called me that. Okay, I get to pick the movie next time. Then, I said with a smile, grabbing him and beginning to tickle him. Noah, Daddy help me. The monsters got me. He screamed, a huge smile etched across his face. I laughed at his incorrect grammar. I'm coming, little man, Xander laughed, coming over and lifting him out of my arms. Come on, let's go before she gets us again. He laughed, running out to the garage. I followed them and managed to get into the passenger seat without much trouble. Xander buckled Sawyer in and came around to the driver's seat and started the car, driving towards the movie theater. Guess what? Sawyer spoke. What? I said, turning as best as I could to face him. There's a new girl in my classroom, he said excitedly. What's her name? I asked. Bria. She's really shy though. She's also a werewolf and Mrs. Carlson said she could sit next to me. He said excitedly. Really? Did you introduce her to Nicole? I asked, referring to Tessa's daughter. He nodded his head vigorously. Bria's really nice, he said. That's good, I smiled. We reached the movie theater and all got out. Can I get an IC? Sawyer asked, pulling my hand towards the food after we got our tickets. Xander kissed my cheek and headed towards the restroom. Gotta use the restroom, he whispered. I laughed and turned back to Sawyer. Yes, get a snack and meet me right here, I said as I approached the counter. I kept an eye on Sawyer as he grabbed a bag of M&Ms. So, what can I get for you? Asked the man at the counter. Sawyer came running over, so I turned to the man. I was aware that his eyes were raking over my body. I'll have 1 small IC, 2 medium ices, 2 soft pretzels, a large popcorn, and that's it, I said. He nodded and plugged it all in. $27.75, he winked. God, stop staring at me, I said in a disgusted tone. Well, I don't see a man in your life, so you're probably a single mother in need of a man, he smirked. Actually, I said, covering my son's ears. My husband is in the restroom right now. I love him very much and would not even think, even for a second, of sleeping with anyone but him. So back off before this gets real, I snarled in a low voice so Sawyer wouldn't hear. My voice held the power that it should, and the man looked like he was about to back off. Glad we understand each other, I smiled sweetly. I uncovered Sawyer's ears. We got our food, and Xander caught up with us as we walked into the theater. Glad to hear you put that man in his place, he smirked, throwing his arm lazily around me as he picked Sawyer up in his other hand. After we saw the movie, we went to the grocery store to pick up food for tonight. We were having a get-together with everyone, which meant lots and lots of food. We picked up 5 boxes of cookies, 2 dozen cupcakes, a couple of cartons of multiple different fruits, chips, and drinks. We went up to the register and paid for it quickly. Looks like you're having a party, the elderly lady at the register smiled. Something like that, I answered, smiling back at her. Mommy, can I get a candy bar? Sawyer asked, already putting it on the conveyor belt. Yes, I sighed. He's adorable, she gushed. How far along are you? I picked my wording carefully because she wasn't a werewolf. 8.5 months, I answered. So you're due very soon, she advised, and I laughed. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? She asked. Girl, I smiled, handing her my credit card to pay for the food. Well, I wish you the best of luck, the woman said as we left. Thanks, I replied sweetly. They're gonna be over soon. You might want to order pizza right now, Xander said as we drove home. On it, I said, pulling out my phone. We ordered from a place very close to us, and the food was delicious. We ordered 20 pizzas and arrived home just as I got off the phone. Ollie's and Smith's car was already in the driveway, and the garage was open. We pulled into it and got out. Smith appeared in the doorway. Got some food? He asked, hinting at a smile. Yes, now you don't want Xander to have to carry them all in alone. I mean, your wife has a baby to take care of, and I am just so tired of walking, and I really need to rest. So would you ever so dearly help your alpha? I asked sweetly, playfulness lacing my tone. Of course, he said, rolling his eyes. I took Sawyer inside, who immediately got on the floor to play with Carly, who was only 2. How are you feeling? Ollie asked. I want this baby out of me, I groaned. What about you? I want this baby out of me, she groaned, staring at her bulging stomach. In 2 trips, the men were able to haul the groceries into the kitchen. Just lay them out everywhere. I called. Yes, ma'am. Xander called. I heard a car from the driveway, and seconds later, the door opened, and the little rascal of a 3-year-old known as Connor came plowing through. Connor. Thomas called, running in behind him. Connor, you need to be nice, please. Now go take your shoes off, he directed. You used to be the same way, so there's no surprise he's like that, I pointed out. Exactly, Xander said, coming into the living room. Mia came in with her 2-year-old, Samantha, on her hip. Hey guys, she said, setting herself down next to Carly and Sawyer. Thomas came back in with a calmish Connor and set him down next to the rest of the kids. I'm here, we heard Tessa say, and Nicole ran in and plopped her down next to the kids. Tessa came in with her bulging stomach. How are you 2 feeling? She asked. Ollie and I looked at each other and said in sync, I want this baby out of me, before cracking up. Tessa looked at us weirdly, but a smile formed on her face. This child will not stop kicking, Tessa groaned, falling back on the couch, where Aiden sat next to her. Ollie, Tessa, and I complained about being pregnant, and Mia and the guys just laughed at us. The pizza arrived, and we all quickly ate. You really can't blame me for eating for 2, you know. After dinner, we all just sat around and talked for some time, putting the kids to bed after a while. Tess, did you just pee your pants? Thomas asked. No. She trailed off as she looked down. Looks like she decided to come early, she smiled. The smile was soon contorted to a look of pain as a contraction hit, though. Let's go, Tessa said, standing up and grabbing Aiden's hand. Please watch Nicole. She can come tomorrow, and hopefully baby number 2 will have been born by then. We watched them leave, and all started talking excitedly. We somehow all fell asleep, the 2 other couples in the guest rooms. Good night, I said to Xander, yawning. Good night, baby. And good night, my beautiful daughter, he said, lifting my shirt to kiss my stomach like he does every night. I love you, I whispered before falling asleep. Epilogue. I can't believe the twins are turning 12 today, I sighed, snuggling closer into Xander. And I really wanted to tell the kids they were getting another sibling today. I looked over at Xander, who was smiling. Let's keep it a secret until tomorrow. Today is the twins' day, he said, nuzzling his nose in my neck. I think that's a good idea, I said with a smile. He began to kiss my neck, but I pushed him away. We have to get ready for the party today. I have to go pick up their cakes and get all the food set up, I said. But Taylor, he whined. No, I said sternly. I looked him in the eyes with my signature look, and he surrendered. I got out of bed and went downstairs. Morning, Mom, Sawyer said in the kitchen, attempting to use the spatula. 19 and still being taught how to make pancakes. Good morning, Taylor, Bria said, showing him how to flip them. They were seriously one of the cutest couples ever. Morning, guys, I said, getting some hot chocolate and sitting down at the counter with it. Good morning, Mom, Maxie yawned, shuffling into the kitchen, helping herself to a cup of coffee, and sitting down. She was my second child at the age of 14. Sawyer, are you almost done with the pancakes? Paisley asked, sitting on the stool next to me. Happy birthday, I said, hugging her and kissing her on the head. Thanks, she said cheerfully. She was always cheerful and happy, but she had that same edgy side that I had. She and Preston reminded me too much of me and Thomas. It wasn't even funny. Well, actually it is, but you know what I mean. Xander came in and kissed the top of my head. Happy birthday, sweetheart, he said to Paisley, kissing her head too. Thanks, Daddy. She smiled. He sat down at the table, the counter having run out of stools. Where's your brother? He asked. He's still sleeping. But, when he wakes up, do you think you could warn me? She asked nervously. What did you do? I asked, barely able to contain my laughter. I put some pink paint and feathers on the fan and then turned it on. Paisley. We all heard Preston roar. That's my cue. She laughed, running outside. Mom, can you do my hair? Asked Avalon, the only blonde in the family. I don't know how it happened, but it did. Of course, I said, getting to work. Where's Paisley? Preston growled, stalking into the room. I tried to stifle a laugh and failed, so I just let it go. She ran outside. Just wait for her, Xander said. But look at me, Dad. I look like a girl, he said. Go shower and change into different clothes then, I laughed. Good idea. See ya, he said, and ran back up the stairs. Happy birthday. I called after him. No answer, but I let it be. After everyone had eaten breakfast, Paisley still hadn't come home. Where do you think she is? I asked Xander, getting worried. I don't know. Give her 10 more minutes, and then we'll go look for her. Why don't you call everyone in the meantime? He suggested. I did. I called Thomas and Mia, Ollie and Smith, Tessa and Aiden, and Trina and her husband, Max. Mom, where's Paisley? Preston asked, coming downstairs with fresh clothes and wet hair. We don't know. She hasn't come back yet, I said. What do you mean? I didn't answer. Mom, she ran outside when you yelled her name, and she hasn't come back yet. I called the family, and we're gonna go look for her if she isn't back by the time they come, I explained, holding back the tears. I'm coming with, he said determinedly. Preston, he cut me off. Mom, she's my twin and best friend. I'm going with to find her, and I'm not taking no for an answer, he said, and I could practically see his blood boiling. Damn that alpha blood in him. Our family was all here within 10 minutes, and Paisley still hadn't come back. We need to go and find her, I said, tears escaping my eyes. I know, come on, Xander said. Samantha, Raven, Carly, Maxie, and Natalia, please stay and watch the younger kids. Let's go, I said, running out the back door and shifting. Preston crawled on my back and held on tight. Why is he coming? Xander asked through the mind link. He wasn't taking no for an answer, I said, cutting it off. I needed to focus on finding my daughter. We searched for hours on end until it was dark. The fur on my neck was damp from Preston crying, and it broke my heart. We searched until the sun began to rise the next day, but Paisley was nowhere to be found. We went back to the house, where all the kids were in the living room watching a movie. Mom, oh my gosh. Did you find her? Maxie asked, coming over and hugging me. I shook my head as the dam broke. Xander took over and rubbed my back soothingly. We'll find her soon. Everything is going to be okay, he said.